Our tale begins a short time before the present, in the world of Arl, at the magnificent royal castle. Inside the grand throne room, an official announces the arrival of Heisen Marquis Alvale. A powerful duke observes the scene, his stern face recognizing the approaching figure. He scoffs at the rumors that Alvale resents being exiled to the old capital. He cynically wonders if that grudge is truly the reason for the alleged treason plot. Now before the throne, Alvale insists he has never held a grudge or considered rebellion. With an intense glare, he challenges the king to place him under surveillance if he is still suspected. The king reassures Heisen, stating that he has never doubted his loyalty and is grateful. Alvale doesn't believe him, lamenting that the king must have already received a secret report. He glares at the court, internally cursing the irresponsible nobles for spreading malicious rumors. He reflects sadly on the bond with his twin, which he once thought was unbreakable. Looking at the distant throne, he realizes how far apart he and his brother have become. A sharp sound effect signals the end of the tense audience. Alvale tells his loyal knight Adamant that they are returning to their domain. The Marquis's retinue begins their long journey back home. A sturdy carriage escorted by armored soldiers rumbles along a country road. Inside, Marquis Alvale and his knight Adamant sit in quiet contemplation. Alvale sighs wearily, questioning how much longer he can bear the title of Grand Duke. A memory surfaces of his youth, wishing he could retire and his brother would forgive him. Adamant's voice breaks the silence, calling out to his lord with concern. Alvale turns to his knight, asking him what the matter is. Adamant looks worried, repeating his lord's title. He asks if something is wrong, but Alvale dismisses it as the usual fatigue from the capital. Alvale clutches his stomach, complaining of hunger, then turns the question back on his knight. A soldier outside the carriage calls out, asking what has happened. Adamant opens the door to find a kneeling scout, politely excusing himself. The scout urgently reports finding a suspicious building not seen on their previous journey. Alvale and Adamant lean out, their interest piqued by the strange report. Adamant asks for a more concrete description of the building's unfamiliar style. The scout struggles for words, insisting it's something they must see for themselves. Alvale strokes his mustache, deep in thought over this inexplicable puzzle. He confirms with Adamant that it has been about 2 months since they departed. He muses on the impossibility of constructing a building so quickly. He rules out a farmhouse or bandit hideout in such a visible, controlled area. He scoffs at the idea of anyone building a farm here without his permission. Adamant agrees, noting the area is too dangerous for such a flimsy hut. Annoyed but intrigued, Alvale decides this strange mystery warrants a closer look. He declares his intention to see it, overriding Adamant's immediate protest about the danger. He playfully brushes off his knight's caution, saying they will only observe from a distance. Alvale asks what Adamant would do if he were to go ahead alone. He gives a direct order. If danger arises, Adamant is to flee immediately. Alvale's expression hardens with resolve as he prepares to move forward. With a firm "let's go," he leads his loyal knight towards the unknown. The vast cloudy sky fills the panel, creating a moment of suspense. Alvale's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Before them in a clearing stands a modern Japanese storefront, utterly alien to their world. Adamant stares in stunned disbelief, unable to process the impossible sight. Alvale directs his knight's attention to the building's unbelievable features. He marvels at the door, a single, flawless sheet of glass of divine quality. He points to a hyper-realistic food model of a noodle dish in the window. His gaze lands on the large sign, written in a mysterious but beautiful script. He hears strange music and wonders if it's a magical recording from another land. He remarks on how bizarre the situation is, and Adamant can only agree. Alvale calls out to Adamant again, his attention now focused on something else. The ever-cautious knight warns his lord against going inside the mysterious building. Alvale insists they must investigate the situation first. He suddenly spots movement, exclaiming to Adamant that there is a person inside. They observe the man's peculiar clothing, and Adamant notes he is unarmed. The man inside lifts a bowl of noodles to his mouth. As he slurps his meal, Alvale and Adamant watch from outside, completely transfixed. They are mesmerized, realizing the man is eating the very dish from the display. The camera focuses on the food model, confirming it is the soba. The two powerful men stand frozen, captivated by this simple, mundane scene. The shopkeeper finishes his meal, drinking the last of the soup from the bowl. Alvale and Adamant are utterly spellbound by the sight. Stepping back, Alvale asks if the man seems dangerous. Adamant thinks not at first glance. Adamant remarks that the man has the shabby look of a commoner. Alvale points decisively toward the mysterious shop. He announces his plan to enter and asks the man about the situation. Adamant tries to protest, still wary of the potential dangers within. Alvale reveals his true motive. He wants to try the food and assumes Adamant does too. Adamant insists on checking for poison first, so Alvale tells him to do the investigating. Resolved, Alvale turns and walks towards the entrance. He reaches out, his hand about to touch the glass door. Suddenly, a scout sprints towards them in terror as Adamant shouts a warning. The scout's hand holds a glowing orb, identified as the crisis detection gift. A diagram explains the orb's function: red for danger, blue for safety. A divine being clarifies that gifts are powers granted to humanity to fight demons. Alvale closes his eyes, calmly assessing the warning from his scout. He holds up his own orb, which shines with a steady, reassuring blue light. He calmly tells Adamant that everything is all right, much to the scout's relief. Holding the glowing blue orb, Alvale declares with certainty that the shop is safe. Adamant chides his lord for the scare, but Alvale simply brushes it off. Alvale strides forward, announcing he's going in first, ignoring Adamant's protest. Adamant quickly orders his men to remain on high alert and be ready to storm the shop. The loyal knight follows his lord into the strange establishment. They stand just inside the doorway, taking in their new surroundings. The two men freeze in shock as the door slides shut by itself. They wonder aloud if an expensive magical device was installed just to operate a door. The Grand Duke and his commander are left speechless by this simple, advanced technology. A small bell attached to the door chimes, announcing their arrival. The shopkeeper looks up from his meal, seeing the two imposing men at his entrance. Alvale stares intently, asking if he can help them. The shopkeeper is startled by their sudden and silent appearance. Alvale and Adamant continue to observe the young man with intense scrutiny. Alvale narrows his eyes, his analytical mind assessing the shopkeeper. The young man, now holding a clipboard, looks at them with a nervous sweat drop. He glances down at the bowl he was just eating from. Alvale deduces that the man, despite his unfamiliar features, is a pure-blooded human. The shopkeeper, realizing they are not just passing by, asks if they are customers. Marquis Alvale and his knight Adamant stare at something off-panel, completely baffled. A sudden, shocked realization dawns in the eyes of the young shopkeeper, Yuko. Yuko breaks into a flustered sweat under the intense, questioning gazes of his visitors. With a nervous gesture, Yuko asks if they could possibly be customers. Alvale glances at his knight before confirming that, yes, they are indeed customers. A wave of professional relief washes over Yuko's face, a bashful smile appearing. Yuko straightens up, his entire demeanor shifting to one of crisp confidence. Alvale and Adamant are momentarily taken aback by his sudden transformation. With a deep and formal bow, Yuko welcomes them to his shop, Nadai Tsujisoba. He explains that his menu is currently limited to just 2 items, keike and morisoba. The two nobles are completely lost, the unfamiliar words leaving them utterly confused. Alvale's face scrunches in thought, a slight blush of confusion on his cheeks. He wonders aloud what a soba shop and the dish soba could possibly be. Yuko asks if they are familiar with soba. Alvale confirms with Adamant that they are not. Yuko thoughtfully considers their complete ignorance of his world's signature dish. With a bright, confident smile, he urges them to try it, certain of its deliciousness. Alvale's stern face breaks into a wide, boyish grin as he eagerly accepts the offer. Yuko glances at the large retinue outside, confirming the meal is just for the two of them. After taking their order, Alvale decides they will both have the kake soba. Yuko accepts with a polite bow and gestures them towards an empty table. The two imposing nobles make their way to a table, looking completely out of place. From behind the counter, Yuko watches his first, and very strange, customers take their seats. Alvale dismisses Adamant's caution, insisting they should simply enjoy the experience. Adamant sighs, resigned to his lord's impulsive decision to trust the strange shop. Alvale is startled as a glass of water, filled with ice, is placed before him. Yuko cheerfully serves them their water, leaving the two powerful men speechless. Alvale marvels at the sight of ice cubes floating in the clear water, an incredible luxury. Yuko happily informs them that the water is a complimentary service with free refills. The Grand Duke's eyes bug out in utter disbelief at this unheard-of extravagance. Alvale struggles to process the fact that even refills of this precious commodity are free. He mentally calculates the staggering cost of ice, a treasure more valuable than many meals. The idea of such pure, clear water with ice being served for free is simply insane. As Yuko returns to the kitchen, Alvale continues to stare, mesmerized by his glass. Unable to resist, Alvale takes a large gulp of water, much to Adamant's alarm. "Delicious," he proclaims, as Adamant frantically asks what he is doing. Adamant reminds him of the need to test for poison, but Alvale is already convinced. He savors the taste, describing it as a superior water, pure as a winter stream. Adamant despairs at how he is supposed to test it now, but Alvale ignores him. The knight insists there is no way it could be safe, but his protests are useless. The two men share a look, their familiar bickering momentarily paused. Their argument is cut short as Yukito cheerfully returns, carrying a tray with their food. He places a steaming bowl of keiki soba on a wooden tray before them. Adamant leans over the bowl, his expression one of intense military-like analysis. He notes the clear, light brown broth and the tangle of fine grayish noodles. He identifies a sprinkling of thinly sliced green vegetables, likely a flavorful garnish. He deduces that the dark, paper-thin topping must be a type of edible seaweed. He concludes that for all its fine details, the dish appears remarkably simple. The two nobles gaze at the steaming bowl, its strange and wonderful aroma captivating them. Alvale, a connoisseur, realizes the noodles are not wheat but an unknown grain. He notes the culinary philosophy is alien. Noodles should be served with sauce, not soup. He, a royal who has tasted the food of many nations, cannot identify this dish. Adamant points out the lack of utensils, asking Yukito for a fork or spoon. Yukito explains they use disposable chopsticks, asking if his guests are able to use them. Adamant is completely baffled by the term, wondering what an ohashi could be. Yukito demonstrates by smoothly pulling a single pair of chopsticks from a container. He holds the conjoined sticks, showing them how they must be split before use. The sight of the simple wooden eating utensils leaves the two nobles utterly flabbergasted. Yukito explains that one eats by pinching the food between the two separated sticks. They are amazed that something as simple as wooden sticks are used for eating. Alvale realizes this is proof of a completely different culture, unknown on their continent. He concludes the young man must be a traveler from a very distant land. While Adamant requests a fork, Alvale decides he will try using the ohashi. Adamant eats with ease while Alvale struggles comically with the unfamiliar chopsticks. His first attempts to grab the noodles are clumsy, but he remains determined. He chuckles at his own awkwardness, finding a certain charm in the simple tools. Deciding on a new strategy, he resolves to taste the soup first. He lifts the heavy ceramic bowl to his lips and takes a careful sip of the broth. The moment the soup touches his tongue, his eyes fly open in sheer astonishment. The flavor is an explosion, transporting them both to a vibrant, teeming underwater world. Alvale closes his eyes, savoring the fragrant aroma and the mellow, perfectly balanced saltiness. He feels the comforting warmth of the broth spread from his throat deep into his stomach. Holding the bowl reverently, he declares internally that this is a truly supreme dish. He recognizes the taste is from the sea, yet it has none of the usual unpleasant fishiness. The flavor is perfectly clear, like reclining by the pristine blue waters of a southern sea. He then turns his attention to the thinly sliced green vegetable garnish. He is delighted by its crisp, crunchy texture and its refreshing, slightly spicy flavor. He now understands the purpose of the delicious green vegetable topping. Both he and Adamant agree that the taste is far beyond anything they had imagined. Having savored the soup, Alvale announces that it is time to try the noodles. With renewed focus, he manages to grasp a small bundle of noodles with his chopsticks. He lifts the glistening noodles from the bowl with a satisfying slurping sound. The noodles trail through the air, dripping with the rich, savory broth. A perfect mouthful of noodles is held aloft, ready for the tasting. He brings the noodles to his mouth and takes his first momentous bite. He slurps them down with gusto, fully embracing the foreign eating custom. A new wave of flavor transports him to a peaceful pastoral field with a shepherd and his flock. He marvels at the firm, chewy texture, so different from spaghetti, that holds the soup's flavor. The taste is divine, with a unique sweetness and a nostalgic, rustic aroma. He swallows the mouthful, the profound flavor settling deep within him. The simple, honest taste of the meal provides a moment of unexpected release. It cuts through the memory of the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the royal court. He feels the immense weight of his duties as a Grand Duke and the king's brother. In the midst of his turmoil, he finds a moment of profound peace in the simple bowl. He cannot believe that a dish from another world could bring him such comfort. He realizes this simple soba is incredibly deep, its flavor reflecting the complexity of life itself. He closes his eyes, savoring the final, lingering drops of the exquisite broth. The bowl is completely empty, a testament to his utter satisfaction. He sets the bowl down with a sigh, declaring that it was truly, deeply delicious. Both men finish their iced water, feeling refreshed and completely content with their meal. A smiling Yukito approaches their table, asking if they were satisfied with his soba. Marquis Alvale and his knight Adamant are deeply satisfied after their meal. Alvale takes a long drink, declaring the shopkeeper has become a great benefactor to them. Adamant agrees, admitting he's never tasted anything so delicious, even in the capital. He laments that his king cannot enjoy such a wonderful dish. The shopkeeper Yukito approaches their table and thanks them for their kind words. The two nobles look up, confused as Yukito pauses mid-sentence. With a sly grin, Yukito presents a small shaker, asking about the shichimi togarashi. They ask what it is. Yukito explains it's a seasoning that completely changes the soba. He describes how its spicy kick enhances and tightens up the overall flavor. Alvale and Adamant are shocked, asking if such a thing is truly possible. They are both overcome with a desperate, burning desire to try this new taste. Alvale orders another bowl for them both, and Adamant agrees to indulge his lord. With a booming voice, Alvale confirms the order with Yukito, who bows deeply. Yukito is ecstatic, clenching his fist in a silent cheer of yes! A wave of emotion washes over him. He can still pursue his dream of making soba. The scene flashes back to him lying in the snow, believing it was all over. He had been in despair, but then his eyes fell upon his precious soba equipment. Now once again, in this strange new world, he can continue his craft. With renewed passion, he embraces his love for Nadai Tsujisoba as it arrives in a new land. The story introduces the shopkeeper, Hatsushiro Yukito, who was once a manga artist. He had managed to land a weekly manga serialization right after graduating from university. He was forced to draw 19 pages in just 7 days, plus extra work for print volumes. The harsh and relentless days of overwork continued without end. His only escape was a 24-hour standing soba shop called Nadai Tsujisoba. In those difficult times, this simple pleasure was the only thing he looked forward to. The shop was a major chain, and its soba was his one comfort. He found solace in the simple, rustic aroma and the gentle flavor of the warm soba. For him and countless others, it was a place of healing for working adults. That cherished place of refuge was the beloved Nadai Tsujisoba. After 3 years, his manga serialization ended, and he quit being an artist. He began a new life, starting as a part-time employee at the very same soba shop. He resolved that it was now his turn to provide a place of healing for others. And so, with a cheerful wave, he began his new career path. He worked with a desperate intensity, pouring his heart and soul into his new craft. 3 years later, his hard work paid off, and he became a full-time employee. He was eventually promoted to manager of a brand new branch in Suidabashi. On the exciting day of the grand opening, an unseasonal snow began to fall. As he walked, he noticed a young girl who nearly slipped on the icy pavement. He mused that people in Tokyo weren't used to snow, unlike him, a native of Hokkaido. As he walked down a quiet street, he heard the rumble of an approaching truck. The truck's tire screeched loudly as it lost control on the icy road. He turned around, confused and alarmed by the sudden, deafening noise. His world exploded in a blur of motion as the truck bore down on him. His last conscious thought as his umbrella broke was that it was all over. He felt a strange sensation of falling, his world turning completely upside down. He suddenly sat up with a jolt, realizing that he wasn't in any pain. He was completely bewildered, trying to make sense of his bizarre situation. He found himself sitting utterly alone in a vast, empty expanse of clouds. He touched the ethereal ground, wondering if he was really on top of the clouds. He realized this meant he hadn't been saved, but had actually died. No matter how he looked at it, this strange place had to be heaven. He remembered the truck and concluded that he must have died instantly. He slumped in defeat, lamenting that his life was over just as it was beginning. Tears streamed down his face as he mourned the future he had planned with soba. He clenched his fist in frustration, believing such an ending was far too cruel. A calm voice from behind told him that there was no need to be so pessimistic. He looked up, his face still wet with tears of despair and confusion. He whipped around in surprise to see who could possibly be speaking to him. A radiant being in classical robes introduced himself as a god, greeting Yukito by name. Yukito was surprised, noting that he looked more like a Greek god than a Japanese one. The god clarified that he was from another world, perhaps even another universe entirely. Yukito was stunned, realizing this meant another world, a classic isekai scenario. The god told him not to overthink it, it was simply what is known as reincarnation. He explained that his world was a fantasy realm of monsters, swords, and magic. The god also bestowed upon the people special abilities called gifts to fight demons. Yukito, still confused, asked why a god would want an ordinary person like him. The god smiled, saying that the reason was actually very simple. He then made his proposal, asking Yukito if he would like to be reincarnated. Yukito was flabbergasted, asking if such an incredible thing was even possible. The god confidently confirmed that it was possible because he was a god after all. Yukido's face lit up with excitement and hope at the amazing prospect. The god specified, however, that the reincarnation would be in his world, not on Earth. Yukido's excitement instantly turned to shock and utter disbelief. He panicked, protesting that he had no fighting ability to survive in a fantasy world. The god reassured him, saying he wouldn't just abandon him there without help. He leaned in, offering as a special bonus to grant Yukito any gift he desired. With the power of a gift, the god explained, he could become a hero or even a king. Yukito's imagination ran wild with the idea of a life of luxury without work. He even pictured himself building a harem and fulfilling all of his desires. The god confirmed all this was possible, as there was no evil demon lord to fight. Yukito cautiously asked what would happen if he were to refuse the offer. The god explained he'd have to wait 100 or 200 years for his next life. Yukito was dismayed to hear there was no guarantee of being reborn as a human again. The god asked him to choose, reincarnate in his world or do nothing. Yukito considered the offer, admitting that there was something he wanted to do. The god encouraged him, saying it was fine even if it had nothing to do with fantasy. With a new resolve shining in his eyes, Yukito declared that he wanted to make soba. The god was momentarily taken aback by this simple and unexpected request. He blinked in confusion, a single bead of sweat trickling down his brow. He recalled that Yukito was a soba shop employee, asking if that was truly his wish. Yukito passionately corrected him, shouting that it was not just any soba shop. He declared with fiery conviction that it had to be Nadai Tsujisoba. The god mulled this over, thoughtfully repeating the name Tsujisoba to himself. He then asked Yukito to tell him all about it, so he could create the perfect gift. Yukito, blushing with excitement, eagerly agreed to explain what Nadai Tsujisoba was. He began to passionately describe the details of his beloved restaurant to the listening god. The god listened intently, absorbing all of the crucial information for the gift. With a sudden snap of his fingers, the god declared that the gift was ready. He remarked that Yukito was the first to ever request a soba shop in his world. Yukito, his expression serious, sought final confirmation that his dream was truly possible. The god smiles enigmatically, saying the full details of the soba shop are a fun secret. The god explains that leveling up is necessary, causing Yukito to panic about fighting monsters. Yukito is relieved to hear the god has made it possible to level up without combat. The god explains that Yukito can learn all the details by saying status open in the new world. The god announces it is time to send Yukito on his way, asking if he is prepared. Yukito nervously admits he is not ready at all, but knows he has no choice. The god responds with a knowing smile and a simple, "Well then." With a grand gesture, the god sends him off, bidding farewell to the child of Earth. Yukito's body is engulfed in a brilliant light as the god wishes him well in Arles. The god closes his eyes, making a final silent prayer for the boy's journey. He hopes this child of Earth will bring a fresh, new wind to the world of Arles. A moment passes, transitioning from the divine realm back to the world of Arles. The scene returns to the present, outside the mysterious Nadai Tsujisoba shop. Two empty bowls, one with a fork and one with chopsticks, mark the end of the meal. Alvale praises the kakesoba, saying it has seeped into his weary bones and revived him. He formally introduces himself as Heisen Marquis Alvale, the lord of this domain. He then introduces his companion, Gashu Adamant, commander of the Alvale Knights. Yukito smiles, realizing he is in the presence of very important, high-ranking nobles. He celebrates internally. His soba is a hit even with the gourmands of this other world. Yukito bows politely, introducing himself as the manager, Hatsushiro Yukito. He finishes his name with a bright, confident smile, Yukito Hatsushiro. The pleasant atmosphere shifts as Alvale and Adamant observe him with renewed scrutiny. Alvale's expression turns serious as he asks Yukito if he possesses a family name. Yukito, confused, replies that having a family name is quite common where he is from. Alvale notes that this is precisely what is unusual, much to Yukito's confusion. The Marquis leans in, saying he has a few questions he must ask the young manager. He asks directly why Yukito chose to open his shop in such a remote location. He questions how the shop was built here, as he gave no permission for its construction. It seems as if the shop simply appeared out of thin air one day, he notes. Yukito realizes with a jolt that these powerful men are deeply suspicious of him. Alvale asks if he cannot answer, but Yukito begins to respond, saying no. With resolve, Yukito closes his eyes and agrees to tell them everything. His story begins not in this world, but on a distant planet called Earth. He explains how he met a god in a place that resembled heaven after his death. He recounts being a human from Earth who tragically died in an accident. The god then bestowed upon him a special ability, a powerful gift. And with that gift, he was sent from one reality to another. He suddenly found himself standing alone on a dusty road in a vast, empty wilderness. Looking around, dazed and confused, he wondered if this was the other world. He then recalled the god's final instruction, to say the words "status open." Taking a deep breath, he clenched his fists and shouted the command into the air. A translucent screen appeared before him, displaying his stats and his new gift. The screen explained that touching the gift's name would reveal more details. He stared at the interface, completely baffled by the game-like system. He touched the screen, complaining that the god could have chosen a more atmospheric name. The details revealed his power. He could summon the Nadai Tsujisoba shop at will. It would be an exact replica of the very Suidobashi branch he was meant to manage. He was moved to tears, realizing the god also gave him a home and infinite supplies. He stood alone in the vast wilderness, contemplating his new reality and his incredible gift. Seeing that no one was around, he decided it was time to test his new ability. Taking a deep breath and steeling himself, he prepared to summon his dream. He shouted with all his might, "Nadai Tsujisoba, Isekai branch." In a brilliant flash of light, the familiar building began to take form before him. The very air crackled with the power of its sudden, impossible creation. The shop stood complete before him, leaving him speechless with joy and amazement. Amazing, he thought. It's truly the Suidobashi branch right here. He concludes his story, explaining that this is how he only just arrived in this world. That is all, he says, finishing his tale. Alvale and Adamant remain silent. Alvale remarks that he had suspected all along that Yukito was no ordinary person. Yukito looks up in surprise, wondering what the Marquis could possibly mean. Alvale leans forward, revealing the local term for such beings, strangers. The revelation hangs in the air, changing everything for the young shopkeeper. Yukito repeats the unfamiliar word, trying to comprehend its meaning. Stranger? Alvale explains that while rare, strangers have appeared in Arles on several occasions. The last one, he reveals, was a boy from Kenya, almost 30 years ago. Yukito clarifies that he is also from Earth, but from a country called Japan. The Marquis has never heard of Nihon and doubts any records of it exist. Yukito feels a pang of disappointment, realizing no other Japanese person has been here. But then a sudden, thrilling realization dawns on him. Wait a minute. He realizes he will be the pioneer who introduces the wonders of soba to this land. As he celebrates, the Marquis calls out his name, bringing him back to reality. Alvale formally invites Yukito to bring his shop to his domain, the city of Alvale. He explains Alvale was the former capital and is now the kingdom's second largest city. With its large population, he is certain many customers will flock to eat his soba. He asks Yukito to place his shop under his protection. Yukito is thrilled by the offer. He imagines all the weary city dwellers he could serve his comforting soba to. He agrees that a big city is great, but asks what patronage truly entails. Alvale explains that strangers are anomalies who must be protected from those with ill intent. The knowledge and technology from their gifts are coveted by many powerful, greedy people. Yukito protests, saying his gift is simply a soba shop, nothing more. Alvale counters that a shop with infinite food is an unheard of and threatening power. An army that can move without food costs is a terrifying military advantage. Without protection, aggressive nations like the Weinheim Empire would surely target him. Yukito finally understands the danger. So that is why I need your protection? Alvale says it is a noble's duty to protect strangers who bring innovation to the kingdom. He offers a location in his protection in the city of Alvale in exchange for taxes. He asks if Yukito truly believes the people of Alvale wouldn't come to eat his soba. The great Marquis then bows his head deeply, pleading with the young shopkeeper. Adamant is utterly shocked, crying out at his lord's incredible display of humility. The powerful noble remains bowed, his request hanging heavy in the quiet shop. Yukito is stunned that this powerful man is bowing his head to protect him. He realizes Alvale is not a bad person. In fact, he is a truly good man. His face flushes with resolve. He knows he must accept this heartfelt plea. He bows deeply in return, formally accepting the offer and entrusting himself to the Marquis. Alvale and Adamant are visibly relieved and delighted by his acceptance of their offer. However, Yukito raises a hand, saying that he has just one request of his own. The Marquis and his knight look on, curious as to what his condition could be. And so, with the deal struck, they set off on a journey to a new beginning. The three men share a laugh, the tension gone as Alvale asks about the condition. Yukito's condition is simple. He wants a prime location to open his new shop. As the carriage travels through the night, Marquis Alvale proudly presents his domain. Yukito, face flushed with wonder, exclaims that the city of Alvale is enormous. He observes the medieval streets, noting the lack of electricity but immense scale. Against the full moon, a magnificent castle rises, leaving Yukito in awe. Alvale confirms this is his home. Yukito likens it to Germany's Neuschwanstein Castle. A maid in a traditional uniform greets them with a deep, respectful bow. She leads Yukito to a guest room, so lavish it seems fit for royalty. Alvale wishes Yukito a good night, suggesting they reconvene in the morning. The sun rises, casting its first light and signaling the start of a new day. A simple breakfast is laid out: hard bread, a salad, and a boiled egg. Over breakfast, Alvale asks Yukito if he slept well, and Yukito thanks him. Yukito finds the bread hard and dry and the salad seasoned only with salt. Looking at his meal, he concludes this is a typical breakfast in this world. Alvale announces he has prepared a plot of land for Yukito's shop. A surprised Yukito asks for confirmation, and Alvale affirms the land is his. They stand before a massive stone wall, leaving Yukito and his companions speechless. Blushing with excitement, Yukito asks if this is truly the designated location. Alvale explains the other side of the wall is the castle garden, asking his opinion. Yukito worries about security, but Alvale laughs, assuring him it's no problem. The Marquis insists it is the perfect spot, convenient for both him and the public. Yukito hesitates, then states that he has one condition before he can agree. He asks if he can serve not only the castle's residents, but common people too. He passionately explains his dream is for everyone to enjoy his soba. His goal is not to be a private chef, but to offer his food to all. Alvale solemnly agrees, granting Yukito full control over his shop's policies. Overjoyed by this kindness, Yukito offers his heartfelt thanks to the Marquis. Alvale grins, eagerly telling him to summon his soba shop immediately. Yukito concentrates, preparing to unleash his powerful and unique gift. He shouts the command, calling forth his otherworldly soba shop. The modern storefront of Nadai Tsujisoba materializes perfectly within the castle wall. Alvale erupts in laughter, amazed by the sight of the shop piercing the stone. Yukito smiles, thinking it's the gloriously mismatched sight he had imagined. Two knights are startled by the building's sudden appearance, wondering what it is. Alvale suggests they all have a bowl of soba before heading back to the castle. Yukito agrees, mentioning that he already had his own breakfast earlier. The Marquis confesses he intentionally ate lightly, anticipating a taste of soba. Yukito invites them to try the new menu, surprising Alvale with the update. He explains with a grin that his gift leveled up, unlocking new dishes. 2 steaming bowls are served: wakame soba and Horenzo soba. Alvale takes a bite, his eyes closing in bliss as he declares it delicious. A text box details Yukito's gift, explaining the new menu from his level up. A group of knights looks at their bowls, confused by the unfamiliar food. Alvale confidently encourages them to eat, guaranteeing the taste of the otherworldly dish. One knight nervously lifts his bowl, preparing for his first uncertain bite. His eyes fly open in shock, utterly captivated by the incredible flavor. The knights erupt in praise, marveling at the intense soup and strange toppings. As Alvale leaves, he promises to return, and Yukito thanks him for his patronage. Yukito smiles, looking at the time and wondering when the next customer will arrive. The clock ticks by, but no one comes, and his smile fades into nervous sweat. He slumps over in defeat, lamenting that he has absolutely no customers. Peeking outside, he sees the locals are wary, keeping their distance from his shop. He wonders if he should go outside and try to drum up some business himself. Suddenly, Commander Adamant arrives with a group of his knights, announcing their visit. Adamant explains they were busy with morning duties and have come for a meal. Yukito happily offers them the new menu, piquing the commander's interest. 2 appetizing bowls of the new soba dishes are shown in delicious detail. Adamant notes the new toppings, while his subordinates wonder what they could be. The commander vouches for the food's taste, urging his men to eat without fear. A young knight hesitantly takes a bite with a fork, a slight blush on his cheek. He slurps the noodles, his eyes closing as he savors the unique flavor. His eyes snap open in utter amazement, his companion looking on in surprise. The entire group of knights is now slurping their soba with noisy enthusiasm. Yukito beams as the satisfied men loudly request second helpings. Their bowls are scraped clean, with only chopsticks resting inside. As they leave, the knights promise to return and to tell their comrades. Yukito clears the empty bowls, pleased by the hearty appetites of the young men. He pauses mid-task, a look of confusion on his face as he hears a sound. A notification appears, and he gasps as he realizes his gift has leveled up. A text panel details his gift at level 3, listing the new menu items. Yukito muses over the new additions, including Hiyashi Tanuki Soba. He stops, a sudden dawning realization crossing his face. He sees the next level-up requirement, a staggering 100 customers. Clutching his head in panic, he realizes the requirement has increased tenfold. His panic fades, replaced by a determined and confident smile. The words curry rice and curry rice set flash dramatically across the panel. A delicious-looking spread of curry rice in a soba set is shown. Yukido clenches his fist, certain that curry is a universally beloved dish. He proclaims that no one can resist the intense deliciousness of curry. He fondly recalls how the curry and soba set sustained him as a manga artist. He rubs his hands together, excited to make his beloved curry rice again. The bell on the door chimes as a customer's feet step over the threshold. Yukito is startled by the sound as he washes dishes. He turns around, calling out a professional and cheerful, "Welcome?" His smile vanishes, replaced by a look of confusion at the sight of his guest. A lone figure in full plate armor stands silently inside the shop's entrance. The visitor is a young woman, her face streaked with tears as she sobs. Yukito cautiously approaches, asking if she is a customer. The woman covers her face with her gauntlets and begins to wail loudly. She collapses to her knees, overcome with grief, as Yukito watches in shock. The camera focuses on the shop's sign, Nadai Tsujisoba, hanging above. The armored woman apologizes for crying and causing a scene at the entrance. Yukito kindly suggests she must be hungry, as her stomach is growling. He wonders to himself why this person suddenly burst into tears upon entering. The woman looks up at him, her expression now filled with intense focus. She asks with a desperate hope if this is truly a Nadai Tsujisoba shop. A surprised Yukito confirms that it is indeed his establishment. The woman clutches her chest, breathing a sigh of immense relief. She leans forward, her voice a whisper, as she prepares to make a request. She asks if they have hiyashi tanuki soba, leaving Yukito utterly stunned. Clasping her hands together, she repeats her plea, her eyes shining with hope. Yukito is taken aback by her serious expression, wondering how she knows about soba. She grabs his hands, desperately pleading to be served a bowl of hiyashi tanuki soba. He ponders who this mysterious woman could possibly be, his mind filled with questions. He decides that if she truly desires soba, he will gladly fulfill her request. With renewed vigor, he welcomes her in, telling her to take any available seat. Her face glows with immense relief and gratitude as she thanks him for his kindness. Back in his kitchen, Yukito focuses his mind on the task ahead. He lifts the freshly boiled noodles from the steaming pot with a strainer. The mound of fine, grayish noodles glistens as he drains the hot water. He quickly rinses them under cold water, giving them the perfect firm texture. He glances at the waiting bowls, preparing to assemble the final dish. With practiced hands, he carefully transfers the noodles into a serving bowl. He then pours the shimmering, cold soba broth over the bed of noodles. His station holds an array of toppings, including chopped green onions and wakame. Next, he turns his attention to the crispy golden tempura bits. He carefully spoons a generous portion of the crunchy topping. He finishes by adding a generous helping of the crispy tempura bits. He presents the finished hiyashi tanuki soba, a perfect and inviting meal. He smiles warmly, telling her to enjoy it, and she replies with thanks. He watches her with a curious and observant eye. She brings her gloved hands together in a gesture of sincere prayer. Yukito looks on, completely surprised by her traditional Japanese etiquette. With a serene smile, she gives thanks for the meal, saying itadakimasu. This is the Japanese way of expressing profound gratitude before eating a meal. He wonders just who this mysterious woman could possibly be. The shopkeeper is left utterly speechless and bewildered by her actions. The story flashes back to introduce Lutia, who was once a French woman. From a young age, she was a passionate fan of Japanese anime. She would frequent bookstores, immersing herself in the world of manga. After high school, she moved to Tokyo to study art, aiming to be a manga artist. She diligently honed her artistic skills alongside her university studies. While watching her favorite anime, she noticed the rising popularity of isekai stories. Curious, she searched online to see what other stories were out there. She discovered Japan's largest web novel site, a treasure trove of stories. She began reading, intrigued by the vast selection available to her. Hours flew by as she became completely and utterly engrossed in the tales. The sound of cicadas heralded the arrival of the hot Japanese summer. She also fell in love with Japanese food, especially a soba shop near her university. One day, she was served a bowl of their signature hiyashi tanuki soba. The chilled noodles, topped with tempura bits, looked incredibly refreshing. The unique Dashi broth culture was a wonderful discovery, so different from French food. Eating this cool soba on a sweltering summer day was a true blessing. The delicious flavor completely overwhelmed her senses with pure, unadulterated joy. She finished every last bite, completely satisfied by the wonderful meal. She was completely knocked out by the hiyashi tanuki soba in a single taste. Soon she became such a regular that the staff knew her by sight. Her aunt had married a Japanese man and lived in Tokyo, her local connection. Her kind uncle would often take her to his favorite nearby soba shop. The three of them would sit together, enjoying a comforting meal. He introduced her to the joy of pairing beer with a savory croquette. She watched as he enjoyed his food, a picture of contentment. He would then take a long, satisfying gulp of his cold beer. He would declare how good it was, and she would smile at his simple joy. Her aunt would remind her uncle that Lucia was still too young to drink beer. She promised herself she would join them for a drink when she turned 20. She loved the cozy tavern-like atmosphere and had a very good impression. She truly believed that those happy, ordinary days would continue forever. But during summer break, the airport shuttle she was on was hijacked. In the ensuing chaos, a gunfight erupted between terrorists and police. A terrorist was shot and his weapon discharged in her direction. She saw the muzzle flash, her final thought trailing off into silence. Her death, she would later learn, was instantaneous. She awoke with a gasp, her eyes wide with lingering shock. When she awoke in what seemed like heaven, she met a god from another world. The god welcomed her to his world of swords and magic, Arl. Her name was Lutia, and this was the beginning of her new life. She didn't feel the sensation of death, but the reality was still sad. It was even sadder that she never got to say goodbye to her family. But then a sudden electrifying realization dawned on her. Just like her favorite anime, she had been reincarnated in another world. She eagerly volunteered to save the world, promising to fulfill any great mission. And so, the god bestowed upon her a powerful gift. Her new ability was the legendary and powerful Sword King. With a determined smile, she declared she was ready to go save the world. But her new comrades asked what evil forces she meant. The world was peaceful. The great wars, she was told, had ended a very long time ago. The demon lord had already been captured, much to the disappointment of some. She was horrified to learn the world was incredibly peaceful, her gift wasted. Her party suggested becoming dungeon explorers, which sounded rather unheroic. Her adventures were miserable, leaving her comrades wounded and helpless. She was forced to use her healing abilities on her constantly complaining party. She despaired over the terrible food, hard bread and soup with no flavor. The lonely nights were the hardest part of her new, disappointing life. She would toss and turn, unable to find comfort or rest. She cried, lamenting that she couldn't be a hero like in her favorite anime. She whispered the names of her mother, father, and everyone she missed. She desperately wanted to return to Earth, to eat her beloved soba. Her desire to eat soba became an all-consuming thought. And then she saw it, the Nadai Tsujisoba, standing proudly in the castle wall. She wondered if she was hallucinating from thinking so much about Earth. She saw the shopkeeper look Japanese, wondering how he was here. How did he bring tools like a gas stove from Earth to this world? She had many questions, but decided to eat first, giving thanks. There were no words that could better suit this magnificent bowl of soba. With a steady hand, she reached for a pair of chopsticks. She split them apart with a familiar and satisfying crack. She felt a surge of nervousness. It had been 2 years since she last ate this. Her chopsticks trembled slightly as she prepared for the first bite. She carefully lifted a perfect mouthful of the glistening noodles. As she brought them closer, a single drop of broth fell, full of promise. Glistening soba noodles reflect the light, their simple beauty captivating her. With a satisfying slurp, she takes her first bite, savoring the moment. The firm, chewy texture is a world away from hard, tasteless bread. After 2 long years, the rich aroma of soba fills her senses. She notices the savory tempura bits clinging to the delicious noodles. A small, contented smile plays on her lips as she chews. The crunchy, fragrant flavor explodes in a firework display of deliciousness. She whispers to herself how truly delicious this simple meal is. Next, she tries the wakame, its unique texture a perfect match. Then she savors the sharp, refreshing taste of the green onions. She returns to the satisfying crunch of the savory tempura bits. She takes another bite and then another, unable to stop herself. Soon the bowl is empty, a testament to her profound enjoyment. Yukito asks if she enjoyed it, and she confirms it was delicious. As he turns to leave, she suddenly grabs his arm, stopping him. "Wait!" she cries out, startling the surprised shopkeeper and another customer. She leans in, accusing him of being a reincarnated stranger. She presses further, correctly guessing he is from Earth, specifically from Japan. Yukito is completely flabbergasted, wondering how she saw right through him. He panics, recalling he was told to keep his identity a secret. He wonders if she's just a dungeon explorer who heard some rumors. He recalls his gift's protection, realizing she can't mean him any harm. He nervously asks how she could possibly have known his secret. She laughs, apologizing for startling him with her sudden accusation. With a bright smile, she reveals that she is also a reincarnator. He is stunned, asking if she is truly a reincarnator like him. He thinks about his own appearance, which is unusual in this world. The locals, like the Grand Duke and his knight, appear Caucasian. The woman before him also has the features of a Caucasian person. She confirms she appears local, but was originally from France. An image of the Arc de Triomphe flashes through his mind. He recalls that the last stranger found here was a boy from Kenya. She knew strangers were protected, but feared being exploited by corrupt nobles. She first appeared near Olor, ruled by a notoriously corrupt viscount. Thankfully, the Grand Duke of this domain despises such corruption. He sympathizes, understanding the fear of being at a powerful person's mercy. He realizes just how lucky he was with his own situation. She laughs, realizing she forgot to properly introduce herself. She introduces herself as Lutia Selen, and he as Hatsushiro Yukito. The name Hatsushiro gives her pause, a flicker of recognition. She explains that her aunt married a Japanese man, also named Hatsushiro. What a coincidence, she says. Her uncle's name is Hatsushiro Yukihito. Yukito's eyes widen in absolute, utter shock at the name. He grabs her shoulders, demanding she repeat the name, Yukihito. He asks if her aunt's name happens to be Amanda. Lutia is now the one struck, completely speechless by his question. He reveals that his own older brother is also named Hatsushiro Yukihito. He declares that the man she speaks of is his one and only brother. She is stunned, recalling his brother married a French woman named Amanda. He recalls her maiden name was Montreuil, picturing their wedding photo. She confirms it, her aunt's maiden name was indeed Amanda Montreuil. He looks to the heavens, wondering what the god was thinking. They realize they were both in Tokyo but never met. He was always too busy with his manga work to visit family. She sadly realizes he must have died before she came to Japan. She knew he had a manga artist brother, but never met him. Suddenly, a shocking realization dawns on her with a flash. She calls him a god, revealing she owns all his manga. She was devastated when his series ended so abruptly without a sequel. His work inspired her to move to Japan to become an artist. But her dream was cut short when she was killed in a hijacking. She was reincarnated with the Sword King gift, hoping to be a hero. But after 2 years of hardship, she no longer wants to fight. Yukito places a gentle, reassuring hand on her shoulder. He tells her she has done well to survive alone for so long. The reality of this world was far from the fantasy she imagined. Alone and with a useless daily gift, her life has been painful. She confesses that she doesn't think she can go on anymore. She is tired of seeing friends hurt and tired of fearing death. Yukito understands, but she feels trapped by the gift she chose. He sees his own past burnout reflected in her exhausted eyes. He decides then that if anything can save her, soba can. He reminds her that she went to art school to learn painting. He tells her she can draw well without needing a special gift. She argues that a person shouldn't be defined only by their gift. She feels she can't compete with those who have artistic gifts. He offers her a solution. She can come and work with him. He knows she loves soba, which makes her the perfect candidate. He exclaims that she should work here, as he needed help anyway. She loves soba, can defend the shop, and is his niece. He explains that soba is a new genre here, a unique opportunity. This is her chance to quit adventuring and work with him. She whispers the words to herself, considering the offer to work together. She wants to accept, but worries about her lack of experience. He reassures her, saying he was a manager and can teach her. He jokes that he also died on his first day of work. She looks at him, a strange bond forming over their shared fates. He muses that this feels like a serious job interview. He offers a salary, meals, and a place to stay upstairs. He asks once more if she will work with him at the shop. She looks up at him, her face flushed and her eyes shining. She accepts with a deep bow, placing herself in his care. He smiles, extending a hand and welcoming her aboard the team. A new hope blossoms on her face as he says her name. Their hands meet in a firm shake, sealing the agreement. The next day marks the start of Lutia's new life. She immediately jumps into action, greeting a pair of new customers. She proves to be a natural, welcoming customers with a professional smile. For now, her duties are serving and payments, as cooking is complex. Yukito watches her, a thoughtful and satisfied smile on his face. Lutia gracefully takes an order from a table of blushing, adoring male customers. She serves another table of equally smitten knights, their faces flushed with admiration. Yukito observes that the clientele is entirely male, recognizing the powerful Lucha effect. He realizes that with so many new customers, he can surely level up now. A level up notification appears. His gift now includes delicious curry rice. In the castle, two nobles discuss the strange new diner in the castle wall. Lord Lilycone enthusiastically invites his stern companion, Scent, to join him for a meal. Scent flatly refuses the invitation, stating he has no interest in such things. Lutia gazes in awe at a steaming plate of curry rice, truly moved. Tears stream down her face as she emotionally whispers the name, curry rice. Yuko is shocked she is crying, but she explains it is the ultimate way to eat rice. He smiles, remembering it has been 2 long years since she last ate white rice. He explains that the soba shop's curry contains dashi, making it a perfect match. Lutia believes the shop will prosper, and Yuko agrees, feeling her enthusiastic support. He declares his great ambition to make this soba shop beloved in the city. The scene shifts to the office of the Alvale Knights Commander. Adamant informs Scent he is being assigned to guard the stranger, Hatsushiro. The knight Scent is utterly shocked, exclaiming that it cannot possibly be him. Marquis Alvale looks on with a stern, unyielding expression, his decision made. Scent remains flustered, unable to comprehend the surprising and unusual command. Adamant, with a calm smile, insists that Scent will take the mission. Scent argues that he should be the one to do it before anyone else. He protests that such menial tasks are not fit for a knight like himself. He reflects on his current idleness, realizing he has nothing important to do. Scent Lilycone is a knight of commoner birth, a rare and respected position. Originally from a poor farm, he used his combat gift to become a soldier. During a patrol, he single-handedly discovered and defeated a group of bandits. For his heroism, he received the name Lilycone and became a minor noble. His rise through the ranks made him an object of admiration for common soldiers. Even the knights who were born into nobility held him in high regard. But as a high-ranking knight, his salary grew while his duties vanished. The result of his promotion was a profound and frustrating sense of boredom. He languishes by the castle wall, overcome with a deep sense of ennui. He feels his motivation slipping, longing for the honest work of a farmer. The idleness has become painful, and he desperately wants to find some work. A fellow knight finds him, announcing that Commander Adamant is summoning him. Scent is surprised, wondering why the commander would be looking for him. He stands at the door, worrying his recent dissatisfaction has been noticed. He announces his presence, and a voice from within bids him to enter. He enters the office and bows formally, excusing his humble intrusion. His eyes fly open in absolute shock at the sight before him. Seated at the desk is not just the commander, but Grand Duke Heisen himself. Overwhelmed, he drops to one knee, addressing the Grand Duke with reverence. Alvale tells him to relax, but Scent stammers an apology for his low rank. Adamant good-naturedly tells him to relax, lest he make the Duke seem intimidating. Scent looks up, still uncertain and tense in the presence of such high nobility. Alvale gestures for him to take a seat, but Scent insists on standing. Alvale insists, explaining that their conversation will be too long for him to stand. Reluctantly, Scent takes a seat, excusing himself as he does so. Alvale apologizes for the lack of notice, much to Scent's flustered surprise. Scent begs the Duke, the kingdom's highest noble, not to lower his head to him. Adamant explains that what follows is a secret known only to him and the Duke. Alvale asks Scent if he recalls his order to protect the shopkeeper, Yuko Hatsushiro. Scent remembers the strange shop and its owner with the mysterious summoning gift. He cannot understand why the Duke would personally protect an ordinary commoner. Scent admits to his superiors that he has never once entered the shop. Alvale is aghast, asking how he could have never tasted the delicious food. Scent explains that he gets his meals at the dormitory, which is sufficient. Alvale sighs, his expression one of pure exasperation at the flimsy excuse. Scent asks if he did wrong, but Alvale says that is not the issue. He waves it off, stating that the important matter is what comes next. Alvale reveals the great secret. Hatsushiro is a stranger newly arrived in this world. Scent leaps to his feet in shock, asking if this is truly the case. Strangers are rare innovators who have advanced their world with their knowledge. He understands now why the Duke would personally protect such a valuable person. But he still wonders why this great secret is being shared with him. Adamant calls his name, his expression serious as he prepares to give the order. He repeats the order. Scent is to take on the mission to guard Hatsushiro. Scent's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated shock at the immense responsibility. He processes the weight of this revelation under the open sky of the city. Steeling himself, he makes a sound of grim determination, accepting his new role. He begins his watch, standing guard outside the Nadai Sujisoba shop. He examines the food model, finding the concept of noodles and soup peculiar. He recalls Alvale's words predicting he would be glad to have this mission. Both his superiors had praised the soba as an exquisite, incomparable dish. He remains skeptical, having never eaten noodle dishes before coming to the city. A familiar voice calls his name, startling him out of his thoughts. It is his old comrade Orman, inviting him inside to eat soba. He wistfully recalls when Orman called him Sensan before his promotion. The formal honorific Sama now feels like a great distance between them. Orman pats his stomach and heads inside, leaving a hesitant Scent behind. After a moment's hesitation, Scent steels his resolve to finally try the food. He rushes toward the door, deciding he will enter the shop as well. Inside, he is greeted by the cheerful welcome of the new waitress, Lutia. He is surprised to see a woman working, wondering who she could be. He recalls hearing that the owner, Hatsushiro, was running the shop alone. He asks the young woman who she is, confused by her sudden presence. She cheerfully introduces herself as a new employee, explaining the manager is inside. She offers to call the manager, but Scent tells her it's not necessary. She guides him to a seat, and he thanks her with a slight awkwardness. He takes his seat, his expression stern as he observes his surroundings. He examines the unfamiliar condiments and the strange wooden sticks on the table. His attention is suddenly caught by something else in the unique restaurant. He notices the menu, sleek and professional like a high-class establishment's. He reaches out a gloved hand to touch the strange, glossy object. His eyes widen in shock as his fingers make contact with the menu. He marvels at the hard, shiny paper, suspecting it is an otherworldly material. The illustrations are so detailed, they look like real food pressed onto the page. A small, intrigued smile plays on his lips as he studies the menu. He sees the price, a mere 340 call, and is utterly shocked by how cheap it is. Scent Lilycone stares at the menu, shocked by the incredibly low price of 340 call for soba. He wonders how the stranger who runs this place can possibly afford to stay in business. His eyes land on an unfamiliar dish called curry rice, a plate of white grains and brown sauce. Since it's a cool day, he decides to pass on the cold soba, finding the idea strange. He continues to study the menu with a thoughtful, skeptical expression. His gaze stops on an item named Horenzo soba. His eyes widen in disbelief as he recognizes the green topping, asking aloud if it's Savoy. He can't believe he's seeing Savoy, a vegetable grown only in the far northern villages. A memory surfaces of his snowy hometown, Holberg, where his family were Savoy farmers. A flicker of nostalgia appears in his eyes as he is lost in thought. He remembers his mother serving the bitter, fibrous green that all the children disliked. His grandparents would laugh, calling it an adult's taste that was beyond the children. A young Scent recalls how he also struggled to eat the tough vegetable. His brother prods him, telling him to eat the nutritious greens, but he remains unimpressed. He remembers his brothers playfully trying to get him to eat the disliked Savoy. In the present, young boys at another table eagerly order as Lutia approaches him. He notices the strange clicking pen that Lutia uses to take orders. Lutia smiles warmly, asking him what he would like to order. Scent orders the Horenzo soba, assuming the pen is another artifact from Earth. With a bright smile, Lutia confirms his order. She calls out the order for one Horenzo soba to the kitchen. Scent is startled by Yukito's cheerful reply, not realizing the manager was so close. He resolves to do his duty while the covert ops team keeps watch. He looks around, finding it odd that the shop is filled with only male customers. An establishing shot shows the simple, clean interior of the soba shop. He listens to Lutia humming a cheerful tune, guessing it must be a song from Earth. Lutia surprises him by bringing a complimentary glass of iced barley tea. He holds the sparkling glass, delighted by the unexpected and luxurious treat. Lutia returns, announcing that his order is ready. She places a tray with a steaming bowl of Horenzo soba before him. A detailed close-up shot showcases the beautifully arranged bowl of soba. Scent looks down at the dish, a slight blush on his cheeks, completely captivated. He marvels at the broth, wondering how a brown soup can be so perfectly clear. He notes the rustic gray noodles resting in the pristine soup. He observes the boiled Savoy and a paper-thin garnish dancing in the rising steam. He inhales the exquisite aroma, closing his eyes in deep appreciation. He is certain this is the delicious soba his superiors raved about. He looks for a fork or spoon, wondering if the waitress forgot to bring one. At a nearby table, a young boy deftly splits a pair of wooden chopsticks. The boy proudly holds up the separated chopsticks, demonstrating their use. Scent is completely shocked by this strange and foreign eating utensil. The young boy happily slurps his noodles with a loud, satisfying sound. Scent realizes with some trepidation that this must be the proper way to eat here. He resolves to follow the shop's custom and eat with the strange wooden sticks. He fumbles awkwardly as he tries to split the chopsticks himself. He decides to begin by cautiously tasting the soup first. He lifts the bowl to his lips and takes a small sip. The delicious flavor makes an immediate, powerful impression. He finds the gentle broth, unlike any meat or vegetable stock, incredibly tasty. Next, he turns his focus to the noodles, lifting a few strands. He brings the noodles to his mouth and takes a slurp. He is transported by the chewy texture and wonderful rustic aroma. A pleasant warmth spreads through him as he savors the taste. He smiles, finally understanding what his superiors were so excited about. He realizes this warm soba is what soothed their tense hearts. With his warm-up complete, he turns to the main event. His entire focus now rests upon the pile of Savoy. He recalls that it has been 15 long years since he left his home. It has been a decade since he last ate Savoy, the taste of his past. He carefully lifts a single piece of the green vegetable with his chopsticks. He notes its deep green color, wondering if it's a different variety. He brings the piece of Savoy to his mouth for the first taste. His eyes fly open in shock as he bites down. The crisp, satisfying crunch of the tender leaf surprises him. He swallows, his mind reeling from the unexpected flavor. He marvels that the tough, bitter vegetable is now tender, its flavor rich and balanced. He closes his eyes, savoring the profound taste. He is transported back to his childhood, realizing this is the true taste of his homeland. A small, knowing smile graces his lips. He remembers how he and his brothers would all complain about the Savoy. Tears well in his eyes, though he disliked it as a child, it's so delicious now. He takes another bite, admitting to himself that he never truly hated it. Overcome with emotion, he weeps, remembering his happy family while eating the wonderful food. He recalls that the last letter he sent home was 2 years ago. He decides he should write to his family soon to let them know how he is. He thinks he has earned a long vacation to go home after working so hard. At another table, an elf notices the knight crying as he eats. She wonders if he was simply moved to tears by the incredible deliciousness. The elf Taceria smiles blissfully, agreeing that this otherworldly food is truly amazing. The story flashes back to 1 week earlier, outside the mysterious soba shop. Taceria thinks to herself that she has finally arrived. She stands before the building, identifying it as Nadai Tsujisoba. The elven gift researcher is excited to investigate the legendary otherworldly cafeteria. A memory shows another researcher warning her that contact with strangers is forbidden. She recalls the news that a new stranger had appeared after 30 years. She was the sole researcher chosen from many volunteers for this special mission. Her handler, Marquis Cantus, had ordered a covert investigation due to the stranger's wishes. She had vowed to uncover the gift's secrets while honoring the Marquis' agreement. Back in the past week, her investigation begins as she notices something inside. She peeks through the door, seeing a group of thugs already there. The automatic door slides open, and she realizes it must be a magical device. Inside, the men are aggressively demanding the chef teach them his recipe. The manager, Yukito, politely explains that his ingredients are not from this world. Taceria correctly deduces that this friendly young man is the stranger. The men grow angry, accusing Yukito of trying to monopolize his curry. They threaten him, warning him that he will regret his refusal. Yukito pulls Lutia back as she cries out his title, "Manager!" The surrounding customers are startled by the sudden and violent confrontation. With astonishing speed, Lutia grabs one of the thugs and throws him from the shop. Taceria blushes, completely impressed and captivated by Lutia's powerful display. Yukito and Lutia wear expressions of utter shock and dismay. A mercenary is sent flying out of the shop with great force. Taceria watches as another thug tries to steal a plate of curry. The thief smirks, thinking he can replicate the curry himself. Suddenly, the curry on his plate vanishes into thin air. Taceria marvels at the magic that ejects troublemakers and erases food. She clenches her fists, determined to investigate this mystery properly. With a hint of nervousness, Taceria steps into the soba shop. Lutia greets her with a bright smile, warmly welcoming her inside. She invites the elven researcher to take any seat she likes. Taceria blushes, looking over the sleek, unfamiliar menu. The interior is immaculate, unlike any grimy tavern she has ever seen. Her eyes suddenly widen in surprise at the menu's details. She is completely astounded by the sheer number of illustrated options. She orders the kake soba, the dish the mercenaries were after. A steaming, fragrant bowl of kake soba is placed before her. She takes her first tentative slurp of the otherworldly noodles. Her face is a perfect picture of delighted surprise. She continues to eat, completely engrossed in the incredible flavor. A single tear escapes as she whispers how delicious it is. This simple dish is far superior to the capital's finest restaurants. She understands now. The food from this other world is truly amazing. Her gift, perfect memory, activates, capturing every detail. She declares internally that she has completely learned cake soba. She reflects that her gift is rare for an elf, as it is not magical. This is Taceria, a researcher from the Ibaraki forest. Her home is a vast woodland in the Eastern Cathedral Kingdom. While elves are often reclusive, Taceria was always different. As a youth, she eagerly questioned a traveling merchant about his books. He confirmed the world was full of diverse people and countless gifts. The merchant remarked on her unusual curiosity for an elf. She felt no need to stay, drawn to lands rich with magic. Reading by lantern light, she knew her life's dream. She wanted to study all gifts and preserve them with her perfect memory. With this ambition, she left the forest to gain real-world experience. She became a dungeon explorer, venturing into dark and dangerous caves. She was introduced as a skilled elf, proficient with a bow and short sword. The influential Marquis Canis saw her potential and recommended her. She saw this as her great chance and eagerly accepted the opportunity. If she could prove her worth, a new path would open for her. During an expedition, their party was attacked by a giant serpent. Marquis Canis was struck down by the monster, gravely wounded. The others panicked. No mage could cure such a powerful poison. But Taceria announced that she possessed the specific antidote. She carefully administered the life-saving potion to the fallen Marquis. Having saved his life, the party waited for his recovery. A grateful Marquis Canis offered to reward her in any way he could. She shyly confessed that her true desire was to research gifts. And so, she was appointed the director of a new research institute. In her new office, her next dream formed: to study a stranger's gift. She suddenly burst in on her colleagues, shouting that something huge had happened. A fellow researcher announced a new stranger had appeared in Alvale. Taceria knew, with absolute certainty, that her chance had come again. At the end of another shift, Yuko and Lutia celebrate a busy day. Yuko suddenly stops, a look of surprise on his face. He explains the shop has leveled up, unlocking new menu items for them. He blushes slightly, thinking about the new culinary possibilities. The scene shifts to a view of the castle battlements. The next morning, a cheerful Taceria arrives for another meal. Lutia greets her warmly, thanking her for being a regular customer. Taceria swoons over Lutia's smile and the shop's wonderful aroma. She prepares to order, but her eyes catch something new on the menu. It is a dish called tempura soba. Shocked, she analyzes the components of the mysterious new dish. Lutia approaches, seeing that she has spotted the new item. She proudly confirms that tempura soba is their newest menu addition. Taceria's face lights up as she eagerly orders the tempura soba. Lutia calls the order to Yuko, who cheerfully gets to work. The name tempura soba echoes in the elf's mind. She can barely contain her excitement, her mind racing with questions. She takes a quick gulp of water to calm her racing heart. She smiles to herself, trying to compose her academic demeanor. Her sharp ears pick up a curious sound from the kitchen. She hears the unmistakable sizzling sound of something being fried. Her face contorts with a mixture of intrigue and anticipation. She gets up from her seat, feigning a need to leave. She announces that she is just going to the restroom. From the doorway, she peeks into the kitchen at Yuko cooking. Her eyes widen as she observes his unfamiliar culinary technique. She glances at the restroom sign as she continues her covert observation. She realizes he is deep frying the ingredients in a large pan of oil. She knows that cooking oil is an incredibly expensive commodity. Commoners are forced to use cheap and smelly animal lard instead. She recoils at the memory of the strong, unpleasant odor of lard. Yet this shop smells wonderful, proving all its ingredients are from Earth. She recalls a greasy, unpleasant fried dish she once ate at a banquet. But she has complete faith that Yuko's cooking will be delicious. Returning to her seat, she is overcome with excitement for the meal. Lutia arrives with her order, a bright smile on her face. She presents the tempura soba, a magnificent and fragrant dish. Taceria gasps, completely in awe of the meal before her. She admires the majestic golden brown disc of tempura atop the noodles. She swallows in anticipation, her mouth already watering. With purpose, she picks up her wooden chopsticks. She lifts a piece, noting it's surprisingly lighter than she expected. Her mind identifies the main ingredient as sweet pecoros onions. She also spots the red body of a prawn, known locally as ebi. She deduces the cooking process, battered and fried in hot oil. She usually tastes the soup first, but today she cannot wait. She takes a huge bite, her face contorting in pure, blissful ecstasy. She takes a large, satisfying bite, her mouth full of the golden fried delicacy. The irresistible texture, she thinks, is just like a whole wheat cookie from another world. She is amazed that the pecoros onions are sweet, not spicy like those she knows. A close-up reveals the plump, juicy shrimp nestled deep inside the crispy batter. She smiles blissfully, noting the shrimp is a perfect accent and the oil isn't heavy. A sip of the dashi broth completely resets her palate for the next delicious bite. She decides to add a dash of shichimi togarashi, certain it will be a perfect match. Overwhelmed by the explosive flavor, she feels as if a flock of birds is taking flight. In what feels like a single moment, the entire bowl is completely empty. She is deeply satisfied, knowing she will never forget the emotional impact of this meal. A new, decadent, and slightly blush-inducing thought begins to form in her mind. She wonders what would happen if she ate this magnificent dish with curry rice. The very idea of tempura soba and curry rice together is almost too much to handle. Though her stomach is already full, her boundless curiosity cannot be ignored. She calls out to Lutia, ordering another tempura soba and a plate of curry rice. Lutia relays the enormous order to Yukito, who gives a hearty, cheerful confirmation. Taceria reflects that after eating soba all day, today's lunch will be extraordinary. She vows to return at night, declaring that intellectual labor requires binge eating. The lunch rush is chaotic, with customers calling for Lutia from every direction. From the kitchen, Yukito calls out completed orders for the bustling dining room. Lutia, flustered but efficient, calls in another complex order to the manager. Yukito cheerfully accepts, happy that the shop is doing such brisk business. Lutia smiles. While she's happy for the customers, they are reaching their limit. She thinks to herself that it is about time they get some more help. A text box explains the gift's level-up system and the addition of beer. Yukito relaxes in his room, realizing his gift's level must have increased. He is shocked and excited to see the next new menu item is beer. He remembers that the Suidobashi branch he managed in his past life also sold beer. A few days earlier, he had decided to research the local drinking culture first. He and Lutia visit a local tavern after closing to conduct their investigation. A server brings a large, rustic wooden mug of the local ale to their table. Yukito raises the mug to his lips, ready to quench his thirst after a long day. He takes a large gulp as Lutia watches with a knowing, amused expression. He immediately recoils in disgust, thinking to himself that the ale is absolutely awful. Lutia confirms his assessment, noting it is always lukewarm, sour, and has dregs. She explains that alcohol in this world is underdeveloped, even the noble's wine. A decent lager exists, she says, but it is monopolized by the Weinheim Empire. Yukito is flabbergasted to learn that distilled liquors like whiskey do not exist here. Lutia adds that the dwarves' famous fire wine is just ale with medicinal herbs. Yukito understands that this world's brewing technology is far behind his own. A brief memory shows Lutia enjoying a meal with her uncle back in Japan. She wistfully tells Yukito that she had always wanted to try beer someday. Yukito paces, realizing he must hire a new employee before he starts selling beer. He muses that finding another person as capable as Lutia would be a miracle. He decides he must hire a local person and wonders who would be suitable. He resolves to ask Lutia for her suggestions on the following day. The next day, a satisfied customer thanks Lutia for the delicious meal. Yukito calls out to Lutia from the kitchen as the rush begins to die down. He tells her to take a break now that things have calmed down a bit. A clock on the wall shows that it is already well past 1 o'clock. Yukito tells Lutia he will watch the front while she enjoys her staff meal. Lutia heads to the back, wondering about the manager's special original menu today. She gasps, blushing at the sight of the magnificent meal Yukito has prepared. A massive golden-brown kakiage don is presented in a large bowl. Wiping her brow, she exclaims how incredibly delicious the special dish looks. She puts her hands together in gratitude before she begins to eat her meal. She lifts the bowl, inhaling the wonderful savory aroma of the fresh tempura. A close-up on the tempura emphasizes its crispy, just-fried sound and texture. She uses her chopsticks to pick up a large piece of the mixed tempura. Her face is full of anticipation as she brings the first bite to her mouth. She takes a huge, satisfying bite, a loud crunch echoing through the panel. Lost in bliss, she savors the rich sweetness of the onions and plump shrimp. An orchestra of onion-headed musicians signifies the symphony of flavor in her mouth. She closes her eyes, thinking what a wonderfully luxurious dish this is. Her eyes snap open with a flash, realizing the culinary experience is not over. She takes a bite of the fluffy rice, appreciating its texture and subtle sweetness. The savory flavor of the kakiage begins to meld with the rice. She smiles brightly, enjoying the perfect harmony of the tempura and rice together. Chopsticks bring a perfect bite of crispy tempura and fluffy rice together. The sound of the satisfying crunch is emphasized as she chews. She has a sudden realization as she looks down at her nearly empty bowl. She holds up the bowl, surprised that she has managed to eat it all. Her eyes land on the nearby pot of steaming dashi broth with an idea. With a clever smile, she decides on a perfect way to finish her meal. Yuko explains that his old coworkers always poured dashi over their leftover rice. Lutia takes a sip of the warm, savory dashi-soaked rice and tempura. The sudden heat of the broth makes her exclaim in surprise. A gentle, deeply satisfied smile spreads across her blushing face. She eagerly eats the rest of the meal, declaring it to be the best. The rich umami from the tempura's oil has perfectly infused the dashi broth. She lifts the bowl to her lips, drinking the last of the warm soup. The flavors of the kakiagi, rice, and dashi have fused into a perfect trinity. She is amazed by the perfect harmony created by the three simple components. With a contented sigh, she puts her hands together, finishing her incredible meal. She feels it's like a dream to eat such delicious food again in this world. She recalls the tasteless rations and terrible tavern food from her adventuring days. She thinks of Yuko as her savior, a radiant light in her mind. While washing dishes, she recalls Yuko's request to find a new employee. She wonders if she knows anyone who can cook and also work the front. She realizes that most of her acquaintances are fellow dungeon explorers. She laments that she doesn't really have any other connections in the city. A memory shows adventurers can cook in dungeons, but their skills are basic. She realizes that a skilled cook doesn't necessarily have to be an adventurer. She remembers a guild employee she once shared a meal with in a dungeon. The young man had praised her cooking, saying his family ran a diner. She exclaims that she remembers he was a good cook, trying to recall his name. A young man with prosthetic legs named Chap is shown on a staircase. The title page for Nadai Tsujisoba is displayed. Chap returns to his lodgings, greeted warmly by his elderly landlord. He reflects that his custom dwarf-made prosthetic legs allow him to live a normal life. An older man kindly tells a young man not to worry about rent for a while. A new chapter begins as Chap, the young man, enters his humble lodgings. He closes the door to his simple room, the sound echoing his solitude. Sitting on his bed, he sighs heavily, his advanced prosthetic legs in full view. He knows he must find work soon to start saving money all over again. He introduces himself as Chap, a former guild porter who is now unemployed. A flashback shows the horrific moment a magical trap severed both of his legs. He was once part of the guild's elite investigation division, staffed by former adventurers. This elite unit was composed of top explorers, knight commanders, and mercenaries. Chap was chosen for this prestigious group because of his highly useful gift. His item box gift could store vast amounts of items, a prized dungeon delving ability. The job was dangerous and life-threatening, but the pay, while inconsistent, was excellent. He was grateful for the high wages, as he needed to save money for his dream. He was the eldest son of a family who ran a small, popular diner in a rural town. He is seen standing beside his younger brother, a hint of family drama to come. A close-up reveals his stern but respected grandfather, a master of his craft. The family diner's popularity was a direct result of their unique culinary gifts. His father's gift granted incredible cooking speed, while his grandfather could create any seasoning from salt. But Chap, despite being the eldest, was different. It was his younger brother who inherited a cooking-related gift from their lineage. Despite this, Chap loved cooking and eagerly helped his family in the kitchen. He was confident in his own culinary skills, even without a special gift. His family, seeing his hard work and passion, assumed he would inherit the diner. However, he made the difficult decision to leave home at the age of 15. His family chose his gifted brother to inherit the shop, leaving him with only a short note. He resolved not to rely on their kindness any longer, driven by his own love for cooking. His new goal was clear: save money and open a restaurant of his very own. His journey began by heading to the largest nearby metropolis, the city of Alvale. He went straight to the Dungeon Explorers Guild, seeking employment. Thanks to his item box gift, he was quickly hired as a porter. The work was perilous, facing down monstrous beasts, but it was a good way to earn money. He saved his earnings, planning to quit once he had enough to fund his restaurant. He found joy in his work, especially when preparing meals for his adventuring party. His comrades would thank him warmly as they gathered around the campfire to eat his stew. They praised his cooking, calling it a lucky treat to have such delicious food in a dungeon. Chap would blush, happy to receive their genuine compliments. His talent for making even simple rations taste delicious was renowned among his companions. Now he reflects sadly that his injured body can no longer handle dangerous dungeons. The money for his dream is gone, and he knows he must find a new job quickly. He recalls the words of a stranger: "Money makes the world go round, and you can always earn more." With a look of fierce determination, He vows that he has not given up on his dream. Lying in bed, he wonders if he should seek work at a merchant guild. Or perhaps, he muses, he could find a job as a cook, even if it's just prep work. A sudden knock at the door startles him from his thoughts. His landlady's voice calls out, announcing that he has a customer. Chap is confused and startled, wondering who could possibly be visiting him. He opens the door to find Lutia, greeting him with a warm smile. He is completely flabbergasted, his face flushing red as he stammers her name. Lutia cheerfully greets the stunned young man, who is still at a loss for words. He can't believe that the legendary Lutia is standing right in front of him. He is shocked that she has come to his humble, messy bachelor's room. He nervously worries about her being in such a place. He assumes she must be of noble birth, a high-class lady of importance. And more than that, she is the wielder of the legendary Sword King gift. A flashback shows her as a formidable warrior, a master of the blade. Her fame as a powerful swordswoman has spread from Alvale all the way to the capital. He remembers being in her party a few times but was always too intimidated to speak. He briefly wonders if she came out of concern for his legs but quickly dismisses the idea. Lutia leans in slightly, getting his attention by calling his name. She explains that she heard from other explorers about the accident where he lost his legs. She asks if he's all right, and he explains his wounds were magically healed, and he got prosthetics. He laughs awkwardly, admitting that the expensive new legs left his wallet completely empty. His attempt at a joke falls flat, creating a moment of silence. He becomes flustered, not knowing what to say to the famous warrior. Lutia looks at him with a gentle, understanding expression. She apologizes for her sudden and unannounced visit. Chap, mortified, insists that her visit is an honor. The two share a slightly awkward but polite exchange. Lutia's expression turns serious as she prepares to get to the point of her visit. She confirms that he was laid off from the guild and can no longer work as an investigator. She asks about his legs and he assures her they are fine for daily life, just not for dungeons. He adds cheerfully that it's not all bad, as he no longer has to worry about athlete's foot. Lutia smiles, recalling that he often went into dungeons barefoot. Her laughter makes him blush with embarrassment. He scratches his head, trying to compose himself before the famous adventurer. Lutia gets down to business, asking if he has found a new job yet. He looks down, admitting that he has not. A wave of relief washes over Lutia's face. She is glad she made it in time. Chap is confused, asking what she means by in time. She suddenly grabs him by the shoulders, her energy startling him into a blush. With an enthusiastic and hopeful expression, she calls out his name. She asks if it's true that he wants to become a chef and open his own shop one day. She fondly recalls him teaching her to cook in a dungeon, praising his delicious food. He remembers telling her about his dream to train at a proper restaurant. Seeing her opportunity, Lutia makes her grand proposal. She asks him with a bright and hopeful smile to come and work at her shop. He is confused, asking what shop she is talking about. She proudly declares that she works at Soba, the best diner in the old capital. Chap thinks that to train properly, he needs a place with truly skilled chefs. Lutia assures him that one taste of their soba will prove her words are not a lie. The next morning, she proudly presents the magnificent Soba shop to him. Chap is stunned into silence, while Lutia explains her excitement for him to taste the food. He marvels at the transparent glass doors, wondering how much such a treasure would cost. He assumes the intricate food models in the window must be the work of a master craftsman. He is amazed by the luxurious construction, finding it fitting for a royal visit. He asks Lutia if Soba is a first-class, high-end restaurant. Lutia laughs, explaining it's a diner for common folk, with the cheapest soba at only 340 kol. Chap is flabbergasted by the low price, exclaiming that it's far too cheap for such quality. Lutia urges him inside, promising an experience of unknown flavors awaits him. She leads the still shocked Chap through the automatic doors and into the mysterious shop. Chap is completely stunned, exclaiming that the door opens and closes on its own. He realizes that even the most high-class restaurants he knows don't have such magic. He questions what he even considered a top-tier restaurant compared to his family's simple diner. With a look of determination, Chap stands at the threshold of the amazing soba shop. He closes his eyes, taking in the wonderful, unfamiliar aroma wafting from within. It's a delicious scent, he analyzes, one that is neither meat nor vegetable. He deduces it must come from seafood, marveling at the delicious and gentle fragrance. He is now absolutely certain that the chef of this establishment is a true master. Yuko appears, offering a warm welcome and introducing himself as the manager. Chap blushes, completely taken aback by the incredibly polished and professional greeting. His flawless etiquette makes Chap assume he must have trained in the royal palace kitchens. A flustered Chap stammers his name, blushing under Yukito's friendly gaze. Yukito smiles, mentioning that he was just thinking about hiring a new employee. Lutia cheerfully interjects, confirming that Chap is indeed a skilled cook. She pitches the job enthusiastically, calling their delicious soba a perfect training perk. Chap panics, frantically telling Lutia he never said anything so presumptuous. He tries to deny her grand claims, completely flustered in front of the manager. Yukito calmly suggests that Chap should first taste the soba, then decide about working there. He gestures for the still flustered Chap to have a seat instead of standing in the doorway. With a bright smile, Yukito presents a menu and invites him to order whatever he likes. Chap accepts the menu, amazed by its high quality and careful craftsmanship. He sits down to study the options, politely asking Lutia for a glass of water. He is baffled by the unfamiliar dishes, recognizing only the Savoy cabbage in one. Yukito helpfully suggests the new Hiyashi Kitsune soba if he is having trouble deciding. Chap studies the menu's picture, wondering about the large, brown, triangular topping. Yukito explains that with summer approaching, cold soba is an especially delicious choice. Deciding to embrace the unknown, Chap formally orders the recommended dish. He is filled with a nervous excitement for this completely new culinary experience. He feels certain that tasting this food will help him grow as a chef. His face lights up with anticipation as he hears his meal is on its way. The Hiyashi Kitsune soba is served, a beautifully arranged and tantalizing dish. Chap leans in, his eyes wide with awe as he examines the mysterious meal. He is surprised when Lucha suddenly sits down at his table with her own bowl. She explains with a bright smile that she hasn't had breakfast yet and will join him. With a cheerful "itadakimasu," Lutia gives thanks and prepares to eat. Chap watches her for a moment before picking up his own chopsticks to begin. Lutia slurps her noodles with an expression of pure, unadulterated enjoyment. A close-up reveals her blissful smile as she savors the delicious, familiar taste. Chap recognizes that look. It's the face of someone eating something truly wonderful. He resolves to face this meal with the focus and respect of a true chef. He analyzes the components: gray noodles, a dark soup, and 2 triangular toppings. Despite his culinary knowledge, he admits he doesn't recognize a single ingredient. He realizes with a blush of determination that this food is testing him. He carefully grips the unfamiliar chopsticks, readying himself for the first bite. He deduces this soba must come from a land with a completely different food culture. He decides to begin by tasting the main component first, the noodles. He fumbles awkwardly with the chopsticks, trying to get a hold of the slippery noodles. He finally succeeds, lifting a small, glistening portion towards his mouth. The precisely cut noodles shine as if coated in jewels, catching the light. He takes his first bite, slurping the chilled noodles into his mouth. A dynamic action line emphasizes the quick, satisfying sound of the slurp. His eye snaps wide open in a moment of profound, flavor-induced shock. A vision of a serene, blooming coastline fills his mind as he tastes the complex aroma. He is transported to a pastoral landscape, exclaiming how clean and delicious the flavor is. He is completely stunned, realizing this dish is unlike any food he has ever known. It's a world away from other noodle dishes he is familiar with, like spaghetti. He thinks of other foods which are often just made to fill the stomach. Some are made overly hard or salty simply for the sake of preservation. Others rely only on the inherent quality of their expensive ingredients. But this dish masterfully brings out the best in everything. It is first-class work. He now understands Lutia's praise. This is one of the top 5 restaurants in the kingdom. He vows to work here, but first he must finish analyzing the Hiyashi Kitsune soba. He turns his full attention to the mysterious fried tofu topping. He lifts a piece, noticing how the savory broth endlessly seeps from it. It glistens with oil, he observes, yet shows no signs of being grilled. He takes a bite, his eye widening as the explosive flavor hits his tongue. He is overwhelmed by a metaphorical waterfall of deliciousness crashing down on him. "What is this?" he thinks, completely dumbfounded by the incredible taste. A torrent of sweet and savory flavor flows over his tongue like a powerful waterfall. He has never tasted anything like it. It completely redefines his understanding of delicious. He contrasts it with the refined, delicate dishes of high-class cuisine he knows. This flavor is bold and direct, yet it is, without a doubt, absolutely delicious. He swallows, letting the profound and powerful taste settle in his senses. "Delicious," he exclaims aloud, asking Lutia what this incredible thing is. Lutia smiles, explaining that the abura age is delicious because it has soaked up the broth. Chap repeats the unfamiliar name, Oj-san? Zerania, a tiny cartoon version appearing on his head. He can't believe it's made from beans. And even Lucha admits she doesn't know how. Lutia calls over to the kitchen pass-through, asking if the manager knows the process. Chap reflects on the strange dish, the unique shop, and its incredible chef. He clenches his fist over his bowl, resolving to learn all he can in this place. He stands and bows deeply, formally pleading to be allowed to work at Nadai Tsujisoba. Yukito and Lutia welcome him with a firm handshake, having found a reliable new ally. 5 days later, a confident Chap is greeting customers at the soba shop's entrance. He and Lutia work together seamlessly, serving a packed restaurant during the lunch rush. He calls out a large order for 3 cake soba with curry sets. He relays another complicated order to Lutia at the kitchen pass-through. Yukito watches him with a smile, thinking how much of a help he has been. Chap works with impressive skill, his experience at his family's diner clearly showing. Yukito is grateful that Chap has adapted so well to the shop's otherworldly style. A single thought bubble appears in the quiet moment. And also, Chap reaffirms his dream to become a chef and asks Yukito to train him. He admits that the soba he tasted was a shock, and he still has so much to learn. He passionately declares his desire to one day create such innovative and delicious food himself. Yukito feels a pang of uncertainty, wondering if a chain restaurant's methods are enough. But he is moved by Chap's earnest and passionate plea. He flashes back to his own training, watching his mentor work with the noodles. He remembers a time he made a mistake, overcooking the soba until it was too soft. His mentor had reassured him, saying boiling soba is difficult, but he would master it. Yukito passes on this wisdom, telling Chap he has good instincts and will learn with practice. Chap's face shines with hope and determination as he replies with a heartfelt, "Yes." In the kitchen, Chap asks his manager, Yukito, a question. He wants to know the secret behind their delicious dashi broth. Yukito explains they use kombu kelp and shaved katsuobushi. He clarifies that katsuobushi is a smoked and dried bonito fish. Yukito adds that vegetables and bones also provide excellent flavor. Chap diligently takes notes, finding the lesson incredibly useful. He admits he hasn't decided on his own restaurant's theme yet, but he vows to open a shop using what he learns here. Yukito is touched, hoping Chap will carry on the soba tradition. A surge of determination fills Yukito. He must be a good teacher. He grips his noodle strainer, ready to give it his all. The clock on the wall shows it's just past 4 p.m. The lunch rush has finally ended, giving the staff a break. Chap notes the evening crowd will arrive soon, but Lutia says lunch is always packed. Chap mentions the fancy reservation-only restaurant in the Noble District. Lutia brings up the popular old diner on the main street. They both agree, however, that Tsujisoba is the busiest place around. Lutia playfully asks if he's getting tired of the constant work. Chap smiles, saying no, he finds the rewarding work to be the best. He recalls his adventuring days when just surviving was a victory. He feels a profound sense of purpose now, of truly being alive. He's grateful that both Yukito and Lutia patiently teach him. He still struggles with the strange, magical tools in the kitchen. But Yukito is a kind mentor, always willing to demonstrate again. Chap blushes, thinking this is a wonderful place to work. Lutia tells him to take his break, she'll watch the front. As he heads to the back, he remembers it's time for his staff meal. Yukito greets him, confirming his requested meal is now ready. On a tray sits a magnificent bowl of wakame soba. Chap looks at the dish, realizing he's never eaten it before. He knows this meal is an important part of his culinary training. He sits down, ready to analyze and appreciate its flavors. The dish is a keiki soba with a generous helping of wakame. He reflects that many cultures simply discard this seaweed. He takes a bite, the texture soft and uniquely chewy. The satisfying mouthfeel is a delightful surprise. He's amazed that such an overlooked ingredient can be so delicious. The unique crunchy texture pairs perfectly with the savory soba broth. The rich aroma of the sea fills his senses. It's wonderful. He realizes the kombu, wakame, and bonito are all from the sea. Their natural affinity creates a perfect, harmonious flavor. Remembering Lutia's advice, he slurps the noodles loudly. He understands now that slurping enhances the aroma and taste. This unique experience, he concludes, only works with soba noodles. He finishes his bowl, blushing at how good the manager's cooking is. The noodles are all gone, but his meal isn't over yet. With a determined grunt, he gets up from his seat. He walks over to the high-tech rice cooker on the counter. With a soft pop, he opens the lid. A huge cloud of fragrant, hot steam billows out. He scoops the perfectly cooked rice, admiring its glossy sheen. He prepares the second part of his meal, rice and pickles. The rice has a firm texture and a subtle grain-like sweetness. That simple flavor, however, is what makes it so versatile. It's a perfect canvas for soups and savory side dishes. Today, he decides to enjoy it without the usual curry. He takes a large bite, savoring the pure taste of the rice. He then adds some spicy shichimi to his leftover soba broth. He pours the seasoned broth over his rice and happily eats it. A blush of pure satisfaction spreads across his face as he sighs. Holding his empty plate, he smiles, thinking it was delicious. He reflects that eating so well is a special privilege for employees. That was so good, he sighs, putting his dishes away. He remembers his past when he scrimped and saved on every meal. Lutia peeks in, surprised that he has already finished eating. She tells him it's her turn for a break now. Yuko cheerfully reminds Chap that wakame is unlimited for staff meals. Chap adjusts his bandana, feeling full and ready for the evening rush. A simple panel transitions the scene. He ties his bandana firmly, declaring it's time to work. In the dining hall, he sees two castle servants speaking worriedly. He overhears them saying the Grand Duke is terribly concerned for Mars-sama. The scene shifts to the magnificent Alvale castle under a gray sky. Inside a lavish bedroom, a maid pleads with a child to eat. The untouched meal of bread in a savory dish sits on a tray. In the large bed, a child with fox ears and a tail refuses. A caption identifies them as Marswell Canon Alvale, Heisen's ward. The maid looks on helplessly, her face etched with worry. Tears stream down Mars's face as they ask why they are alone. They bury their face in the pillow, crying for their parents. A flashback shows Mars's homeland, a border territory. Their mother was a beautiful kitsune, a fox-like beast. Mars, a half-breed, inherited their mother's lovely ears and tail. Their parents were deeply in love and had a happy marriage. Mars remembers being a happy, smiling, and beloved child. They recall reaching for their parents, calling out for them. Their parents would return the affection, saying they loved Mars dearly. The happy memory fades, replaced by the sight of two white urns. A somber butler presents the urns to the small, confused child. Mars looks up, asking what the objects are. The butler explains they are the remains of Mars's parents. Their carriage had crashed into a ravine during a great storm. Mars is left alone, crying and clutching a doll. The child's face is a heartbreaking picture of grief. The imposing figure of Marquis Alvale appears before them. He gently corrects the child, saying he is their grand uncle. Mars repeats the title, their voice barely a whisper. Alvale extends his hand, offering to make Mars part of his family. Mars takes his hand, beginning a new, lonely life in the castle. The final image is a sad memory of their parents, now gone forever. In the unfamiliar land of Alvale, young Mars feels utterly lost and alone. The child is surrounded by strangers, the faces of the castle staff unfamiliar. Even the food is alien, and Mars has once again refused to eat. It's not tasty, the child weeps, longing for the spices of home. This grave news is received with a heavy heart and a sigh of understanding. A maid reports to Marquis Alvale that Mars still has not eaten. Alvale fears the child will fade away, journeying to join their lost parents. Desperate for a solution, a sudden otherworldly idea strikes the worried Marquis. At that moment, Yuko passionately defends his secret curry from eager customers. His staff notes that this happens all the time. The curry is irresistible. Yuko declares his curry is a unique treasure, one destined to save a child. A new chapter begins, a story of comfort, flavor, and healing. In a colorful dream, Mars recalls the loving smiles of their parents. The child remembers their kind human father and their beautiful kitsune mother. Together, they stand before a vibrant feast, a memory of happier days. Their mother gently offers a spoonful of food, her smile warm and inviting. Mars takes a happy bite, the taste a perfect and comforting memory. Their father holds them close, asking if the delicious meal is to their liking. With a radiant smile, Mars declares that the food is absolutely wonderful. The child reaches out, happily asking their beloved mother for another bite. But the dream shatters and Mars awakens with a gasp, reaching for nothing. The heartbreaking reality crashes down upon them, and tears begin to fall. They clench the sheets, remembering their parents are gone and can never return. A deep, aching loneliness fills them with the desire to see their family. A dangerous thought forms. Perhaps refusing to eat will reunite them. Marquis Alvale enters the room, finding the listless child still awake. Mars looks up with dull eyes, weakly acknowledging their great uncle. The child's fragile state causes the powerful Marquis's heart to ache. He steels his resolve, determined to find a way to save them. Sitting by the bed, he softly wishes Mars a good morning. The child gives a weak, non-committal reply, their spirit still broken. He recalls a servant explaining that Mars's ailment is not of the body. It is a sickness of the heart, a deep melancholy that has taken hold. A sickness of the heart has taken hold, for which there is no medicine. Marquis Alvale apologizes for his absence, having been busy with work in the capital. He gently scoops the child from bed, offering to carry them for a walk. They walk through the castle grounds, the small child listless in his strong arms. Alvale holds the frail child close, his expression filled with deep, unspoken concern. He is shocked by how light the child has become, a sign of their wasting away. He remembers a time when Mars was strong enough to walk holding his hand. But now the child is too weak, and he must carry them everywhere they go. Mars has become withdrawn, pushing away anyone who tries to offer comfort. He desperately wonders if anyone in the world can possibly heal this child's heart. Suddenly, the child stirs, pointing with a surprising burst of energy. Alvale is stunned as Mars speaks for the first time in days, asking a question. The child's finger is aimed at the strange shop built into the castle wall. Alvale explains that the building is a diner called Nadai Tsujisoba. He points out its peculiar location, nestled right into the castle's outer wall. A diagram shows how the shop cleverly opens to both the public and the private garden. He recalls seeing the owner relaxing in the garden, a sight he found amusing. Mars asks about the shop, and Alvale confirms it belongs to Yukito Hatsushiro. With great importance, he reveals it's a shop created by a stranger's gift. His attendants are aghast that he would share such a vital state secret. Mars mispronounces the word stranger, asking if it is something tasty. Seeing this spark of interest, Alvale suggests they go have a closer look. With a small nod, the child agrees, a flicker of life returning to their eyes. Hopeful, Alvale carries Mars purposefully towards the otherworldly restaurant. The flustered attendants hurry to catch up with their determined lord. He proudly presents the shop, asking the child what they think of it. He notes that despite the early hour, the shop is already bustling with customers. A wonderful aroma fills the air, and the child's sensitive nose begins to twitch. The scent triggers a powerful memory of a feast from a happier time. It is the smell of home, of the food their loving mother used to make. Alvale's eyes widen with a sudden, stunning realization. He knows that powerful, familiar scent. It is the unmistakable aroma of curry rice. That very evening, he returns with Mars, determined to see if this food can help. Alvale holds the small child, who whispers that the curry smells delicious. Mars smiles blissfully, recognizing the familiar, wonderful scent from their home. A look of sudden, profound understanding dawns upon Marquis Alvale's face. Mars's homeland was rich in spices, and their beast blood craved flavor. The child's refusal to eat was not just an act of grief. He realized the bland northern cuisine was likely unappealing to the child. Alvale admits his carelessness and declares he has a wonderful new idea. He suggests they have lunch at the soba shop to eat curry. Mars looks up with a glimmer of hope and quietly agrees. A warm memory surfaces of a happy family meal, filled with curry. The table was laden with vibrant, flavorful dishes from their homeland. In contrast, the castle's simple, salty food held no appeal for them. Holding the child, Alvale hopes this place might finally tempt their appetite. The automatic door slides open, a marvel of Earth technology that fascinates Mars. Inside, Mars takes a deep breath, inhaling the comforting, delicious scents. The child recognizes the smell of curry and another good fish-like aroma. It triggers a fond memory of eating grilled fish with their family. The shop's manager, Yukito, offers them a warm and friendly welcome. Lucha greets the Grand Duke formally, while Yukito is comically flustered. Alvale apologizes to the elf Taceria, who says his visit is no trouble. Taceria agrees to pass his greetings along to the manager, Yukito. Mars, nestled in Alvale's arms, curiously points toward the elven researcher. Taceria smiles, promising Mars a delicious meal from the talented manager. The small child blushes shyly and gives a quiet nod of agreement. With a kind gesture, Taceria reaches out and gently pats Mars's head. The touch evokes a memory of their mother's loving hand and gentle praise. Mars closes their eyes, feeling a profound warmth from the tender gesture. Lutia asks about the child, and Alvale explains their tragic family situation. Lutia's expression fills with sadness and empathy upon hearing the news. The Grand Duke looks down, admitting the situation pains him deeply. Lutia brightens, professionally showing them to a table and offering water. Taceria arrives with their meal, directing the esteemed guests to their seats. Alvale asks if the food is too spicy, but Mars quietly reassures him. A cheerful server presents a tray of water, chilled with the impossible luxury of ice. Young Mars stares with wide-eyed wonder at a glass filled with ice. The child thinks the sparkling cup and water must be from a magical shop. Taceria takes their order, as Alvale requests smaller portions for the child. She kindly agrees to make Mars's meal half the normal size. Taceria relays the modified order to the kitchen with a cheerful bow. From behind the counter, Yukito acknowledges the order with a hearty shout. Alvale notices a new face working in the kitchen, curious about the shop's growth. Chap, the new hire, looks out, recognizing the important guests at the table. Yuko gives a confident smile, promising to prepare a truly delicious meal. Alvale gently tells Mars to open their mouth for a drink of water. He helps the small child take a sip from the magnificent glass. A delightful shiver runs through Mars as they taste the cold water. With a happy blush, Mars quietly declares that the water is delicious. Alvale, overjoyed by this spark of life, asks if they want more. Mars eagerly agrees, wanting more water, curry, and the savory soup. Lutia arrives, telling them she will bring them a full, satisfying meal. Taceria and Chap present the steaming trays of the curry rice sets. A perfectly portioned mini set is placed before the small, fox-eared child. The tray holds a small bowl of cake soba and a plate of curry. Mars looks at the meal with awe, whispering that it is amazing. The child identifies the familiar brown soup and the thick brown sauce. Taking a deep breath, Mars inhales the comforting and nostalgic aroma. A warm memory surfaces of their mother feeding them a similar smelling meal. Alvale softly notes that Mars seems to be enjoying the food already. Mars looks up at him, their voice filled with emotion as they say his title. Alvale explains the two dishes, the curry rice and the cake soba. He asks which one they would like to try first, suggesting the curry. He carefully scoops a perfect bite of curry and rice onto the spoon. Alvale gently encourages Mars to open their mouth and take a bite. Mars takes the first taste, the flavor instantly familiar and overwhelming. A vivid vision of their smiling mother appears, offering them a spoonful. The happy memory is filled with their parents' loving and gentle words. Mars remembers the joy of sharing delicious meals with their beloved family. The bittersweet memory causes the child's face to crumple in sorrow. Tears stream down their face as they begin to cry for their mother and father. Alvale is instantly concerned, asking if the curry was too spicy. Mars tearfully explains that it's delicious and tastes exactly like home. The child wishes they could share this wonderful meal with their parents. They remember their parents telling them how good the food was. Mars wails, wanting to eat with their lost family right now. Alvale watches the grieving child, his own heart heavy with sorrow. Mars wants to eat with their great uncle, mother, and father all together. But they know this delicious meal cannot be shared with their parents. They realize their parents are gone, and they must eat alone now. Alvale embraces the child, knowing they don't yet grasp the finality of death. He gently explains that their parents have journeyed to the sky and cannot return. Mars continues to sob, the harsh reality of their loss finally setting in. Alvale holds their small hands tightly, offering what comfort he can. He tells Mars they must not forget, as there are still people to eat with. Mars looks up, asking if their great uncle will be with them. Alvale assures them with a determined look that he will always be there. He promises that as they grow, they will find many new people to share meals with. He paints a future of happy gatherings with friends around a dinner table. He tells them that one day, as an adult, they will find love and marry. And they will share countless meals with the person they choose to wed. When they have children of their own, their family will continue to grow. This new family will gather to share meals and create wonderful memories. And when those children grow up and have families of their own, their spouses and grandchildren will also join the ever-growing family table. Mars innocently asks what a family is, unsure of their place in one. They wonder if they can truly do all those things when they are older. The child feels lost and alone, unable to comprehend such a future. They wonder if this profound loneliness will ever truly go away. Alvale makes a solemn vow to protect Mars until they become an adult. He explains that their parents are watching from the sky, wanting them to live. Mars asks if their mother and father are part of everyone watching them. Alvale confirms that their parents, more than anyone, want them to be happy. He tells Mars not to think of joining their parents in death so soon. He explains that to live is to eat, for no creature can survive without food. To eat is to transform the life of food into one's own life, sustaining it. Mars looks at him and says the food at the castle isn't delicious. Alvale is struck speechless by this simple, heartbreaking revelation. The staff listening from afar are shocked by the child's words. They can't believe the food in the great Alvale castle could be bad. Mars sadly confirms that only their great-uncle's food isn't tasty. Alvale clenches his fist, a look of fierce determination on his face. He declares they will eat at Nadai Tsujisoba every day from now on. Mars's face lights up, asking excitedly if they can have curry again. Alvale agrees, promising they will discover many more delicious foods together. He gestures to the other bowl, suggesting the kake soba as an example. Mars repeats the unfamiliar name, kake soba, with curiosity. Alvale offers them a spoonful of the warm, savory noodle soup. Mars's eyes go wide with delight, exclaiming that it's delicious. The child is overjoyed, feeling refreshed and asking for even more curry. Alvale laughs heartily, happy to see Mars so full of life again. From that day on, Alvale continued to bring Mars for mini curry sets. The staff of Nadai Tsujisoba always greeted their special guests warmly. One day, a confident Mars arrived alone, welcomed by the whole team. Alvale ordered his chefs to procure spices from the Dengard Federation. The castle's cuisine improved dramatically, earning praise from the royal court. Night falls over the peaceful city of Alvale. The sign for Nadai Tsujisoba hangs above the now darkened shop front. The bell on the door is silent. The shop is closed for the day. Yuko announces that business for the day has officially concluded. He congratulates his exhausted but happy staff on a job well done. He remarks on how busy they were, but says he is grateful for it. He sincerely thanks Chap, admitting they couldn't have managed without him. Chap is modest, while Lutia vows to work even harder tomorrow. Suddenly, a bright notification screen appears before a shocked Yuko. His gift has reached level 7, unlocking beer and croquettes on the menu. With a blush of pure joy, Yuko announces that beer has finally arrived. Chap and Lutia are confused, asking if he simply means the ale they know. Yuko clenches his fists, declaring this a revolution for the drinkers of this world. He explains that his lager beer is far tastier than ale. It is revolutionary. Chap's expression turns serious, asking if it is the Weinheim Empire's lager. He explains the Empire monopolizes lager, so it's not available to the public. Their prized lager is so delicious, it is often used as a diplomatic tool. Yuko asks if the Weinheim Empire is disliked, shocking his 2 employees. Chap clarifies they are dangerous rivals who have even gone to war before. Yuko thoughtfully wonders about the brewers in such a notorious country. He ponders what kind of beer they must be making with such dedication. Lutia begs him to stay away, but Yuko trusts his gift to repel evil. He rallies his team, excited for the busy nights the beer will surely bring. Yuko smiles slyly, revealing that beer is not the only new addition. He announces that the next level up will unlock croquette soba on the menu. Chap is confused, but Lutia is thrilled, calling it a symbolic dish. Yuko describes the crispy croquette softening perfectly in the savory soba broth. With manic glee, he declares the dish pairs perfectly with a cold beer. Lutia agrees, fondly recalling how her uncle enjoyed that very combination. Yuko proclaims this new menu will elevate the world's beer craze to its peak. Chap worries if they can handle it, but Yuko brushes off his concern. Yuko reflects that as long as people enjoy his soba, it will all be worthwhile. Fired up by his passion, Lutia and Chap agree to do their best. Yuko's expression turns thoughtful as he suddenly remembers something. He asks Lutia if there are any other famous drinks besides the Weinheim lager. Lutia suggests he might mean the legendary fire wine of the dwarves. She explains it's a potent drink made by mixing ale with medicinal herbs. She points to a map showing the dwarves' autonomous region in the northeast. Yuko is surprised, asking if they are like the dwarves from fantasy stories. Lutia describes them as short, stout, and muscular, with the appearance of children. Chap adds that they are a stubborn race of craftsmen who love their drink. Yuko wonders why dwarves have an autonomous territory within the human kingdom. The story flashes back nearly 500 years when dwarves thrived in the south. A brutal civil war erupted, forcing the Weta clan to flee their homeland. At the same time, a powerful stranger, the fire giant Surtur, appeared. The monstrous fire giant rampaged across the continent, spreading destruction. Surtur was eventually defeated by another stranger, a legendary swordsman. With the unified nations collapsed, the chaos continued for some time. The displaced Weta clan was forced to wander across the ravaged continent. They eventually found their way to the newly established Cathedral Kingdom. They settled in the barren Dagato Mountains, a land humans had deemed worthless. The Weta clan decided to make this inhospitable mountain their final home. Their first task was to begin carving into the mountain's hard bedrock. Through immense effort, they constructed a magnificent city deep underground. There they began to search for the ore veins that humans had overlooked. 2 Dwarven miners look at each other with wide-eyed surprise and excitement. They had finally discovered a rich vein of ore deep within the mountain. In less than a century, they transformed the barren land into a city of artisans. It was then that a new kind of alcohol, ale, was invented. Dwarves are a race whose gifts are typically suited for smithing and crafting. But one day, a member of the Weta clan appeared with a gift for brewing. Before this, wheat was considered only fit for animal feed or simple bread. But this man achieved the great feat of making alcohol from this humble grain. At the time, it was believed alcohol could only be made from fruit like wine. The Weta clan, with genius insight, shared the recipe with the entire world. Ale spread explosively, becoming the most representative drink of the era. But the inventor was actually a human stranger from a world called Midgard. He was found near Dagato Mountain and was taken in by the Weta clan. Wishing to avoid attention, he chose to hide his true identity among them. The gift he had received from the gods was the divine power of brewing. To repay the dwarves' kindness, he used his gift to create a new kind of ale. The resulting brew was exceptionally, unbelievably delicious. The other dwarves were astounded and begged him to teach them his methods. He generously taught them everything he knew about brewing ale. However, he warned that they could never replicate the taste without his gift. This legendary tale of a magical brew took place roughly 400 years ago. The dwarves' quiet prosperity, however, caused a headache for the cathedral kingdom. Initially, the kingdom had not officially permitted the dwarves to settle there. The king and his advisor discuss how the dwarves adapted to the harsh land. An advisor reports that the dwarves are profiting greatly from their new ale. Though refugees, they began trading resources and patenting their ale for profit. The king laments that since they aren't citizens, he cannot collect taxes. The issue was complicated by the rival Formoria clan, exiled from their homeland. An advisor warns that the Formoria clan may seek reconciliation, creating an enclave. The king's council fears that Formoria's intervention would surely lead to war. The king is asked what course of action should be taken to resolve this. The king listens intently to the concerns of his advisors. The clever king, however, already had a brilliant plan in mind. He officially recognized the entire Weta clan as citizens of the kingdom. He granted them the entire Dagato mountain region as their autonomous territory. He promised that other nobles would never interfere with their lands. The clan's leader was granted the highest aristocratic rank, Grand Duke. He also gave them a new family name, Dagato, and began collecting taxes. The king's advisors celebrate, having avoided war and secured a new tax revenue. For 400 years, the Weta Dagato have maintained their independence and autonomy. Today, the House of Weta Dagato is a symbol of power within the kingdom. It's said the kingdom would have lost the war with Weinheim without their aid. The first-class weapons they produce now support the entire royal army. The king tells his sons, Victor and Hyson, that the dwarves are indispensable. He warns them never to show ill will and to always maintain their friendship. The two young princes dutifully agree to their father's command. Years later, a visitor greets the king, asking if his brother is well. The current leader is Grand Duchess Heidi Weta Dagato, a renowned hero. The scene shifts to a wide shot of the magnificent Alvale castle. Inside, Marquis Alvale reads a letter with a grim expression on his face. He suddenly crushes the letter in his fist, exclaiming in shock. He furiously summons his knight, Adamant, who responds immediately. A torn letter reveals the sender's intent to visit within a few days. As Heidi rides hard, Alvale despairs, blaming his brother for this predicament. The sound of galloping hooves thunders across a snowy field towards Alvale. Two exhausted dwarven advisors, their faces strained, plead with their leader to stop. Their formidable leader, Grand Duchess Heidi, sharply dismisses their pleas for rest. Heidi declares her urgent quest, to taste a legendary sake the king mentioned. With a fierce cry, she spurs her powerful steed onward, desperate for a drink. She vows to taste the fabled Nadai Tsujisoba, a drink better than dwarven ale. A flashback begins, showing a younger Heidi listening to her father's lesson. Her father explains the profound debt the dwarves owe to the cathedral kingdom. He recounts their history as refugees, exiled from their homeland of Formoria. With tears in his eyes, he recalls the humans who gave them refuge and freedom. A skeptical young Heidi dismisses her father's tale as overly sentimental. Her father laughs heartily, detailing the kingdom's incredible generosity to their people. He proudly announces that their leader was even granted the noble title of Grand Duke. A shrewd Heidi suspects there were political motives behind the kingdom's kindness. Her father playfully agrees but praises her sharp and spirited mind. He reminds her of their solemn debt, stating they cannot refuse every request. Heidi listens intently as her father's tone becomes more serious and profound. He sternly warns her that while they have a duty, they are not slaves. He advises her to follow her own soul when making truly important decisions. The young Heidi looks confused, not fully grasping her father's deep wisdom. He points at her, urging her to prepare for leadership, but she protests. He laughingly insists that she is the only one strong enough to succeed him. He teases that only she, among all his children, has the grit for the role. In another memory, Heidi thinks of ways to help her hardworking mother. She affectionately calls her younger brother cute, earning a comical insult in return. Their mother furiously chases a terrified Heidi with a knife for the teasing. She sadly recalls her beloved father Othman, passing away 30 years prior. In the present, she carries the heavy burden of leading her people. Her advisors discuss her sons, confident one will become the next Grand Duke. A covered wagon rumbles along a long, dusty road under a cloudy sky. Heidi muses aloud that after 30 long years, it is finally time to retire. An advisor protests from inside the wagon, insisting she is still too young. Heidi wearily reminds him that her 60th birthday is fast approaching. The advisor tells her to set aside her weariness as their work awaits. In the distance, the sprawling stone buildings of the capital city appear. Their wagons approach the grand entrance to the capital and its impressive castle. They oversee the biannual delivery of weapons, a vital duty for their domain. Exquisite Dwarven forged swords and shields await distribution to the kingdom's knights. As Grand Duchess, Heidi herself must personally oversee this important delivery. A royal official presents her with the inventory list, which she agrees to check. She contemplates discussing her retirement with the king, feeling her age. Heidi and her advisors have an audience with the king in his office. The king takes a quiet sip of tea from an ornate teacup. He begins to discuss a serious matter with the visiting Grand Duchess. An official protests the king's informal tone, but the king dismisses him. Heidi laughs heartily, excusing her own boisterous and direct Dwarven nature. Her demeanor shifts instantly to business as she asks him to continue. The king unrolls a scroll, requesting a 20% increase in their next delivery. He hands the large scroll across the table for her to inspect the details. Heidi and her advisor gasp in shock as they read the extensive list. Her face is a mask of disbelief as she processes the outrageous request. The list details a massive increase in arms, including rare mithril weaponry. Heidi confirms the 20% increase, but she clearly has reservations. The king sits grimly, acknowledging the sudden and suspicious nature of his request. Heidi complains that with more notice, the request might have been possible. She knows this sudden demand will disrupt all of their existing production plans. She worries that fulfilling this order will completely drain her domain's resources. The king admits he is being unreasonable, citing a recent decrease in ore. Heidi points to a specific item on the list, demanding an explanation. Her hand trembles slightly as she voices her suspicion. They are preparing for war. The king sternly denies any aggressive intentions, unlike the Weinheim Empire. He explains the preparations are defensive, a necessary measure to avoid conflict. Heidi stands firm, declaring that her people are not slaves to the kingdom. She slaps the document, questioning if now is the right time to refuse. The king and his advisor wait in silence for her final decision. The king's sharp gaze reveals the gravity of the unfolding political situation. He reveals that his spies have reported suspicious movements from the empire. Heidi and her advisors are visibly shocked by this alarming news. He explains his desire to reinforce their defenses as a necessary precaution. A worried Heidi realizes the threat from the Weinheim Empire is all too real. The narrative explains the long-standing, tense history with the aggressive empire. Heidi accepts her duty, agreeing to help defend their shared country. She is clearly stressed, knowing the immense difficulty of the task ahead. She argues that even with materials, forcing her craftsmen will be difficult. She states that processing the mithril is impossible on such a short timeline. She explains the magical properties of mithril and why it is so hard to forge. Dwarven craftsmen with their special gifts can work mithril far more effectively. She proposes a plan. If they focus only on mithril, it might be done in 6 months. They realize even this plan will require immense sacrifice from the craftsmen. Recalling her father's words, she claps her hands together, making her decision. With a determined point, she agrees to the king's difficult request. The king and his advisor are visibly relieved by her sudden acceptance. Heidi grins, assuring them that a dwarf's word is their bond. She recalls the last war, noting this task is nothing compared to past hardships. The grateful king offers her any reward she desires in addition to payment. He smiles, promising to grant any wish that is within his royal power. Heidi grins slyly, testing the limits of the king's generous offer. Her advisors worry as she pushes her luck, but she feels justified. The king accepts her challenge, and the two leaders share a knowing look. Heidi makes her surprising request to taste the finest sake in the kingdom. Her advisor is shocked that she would choose delicious sake over more gold. A tiny ecstatic Heidi declares that for a dwarf, sake is the water of life. The king strokes his mustache, thoughtfully considering her unusual request. She challenges him to produce a drink superior to the famed Dwarven ale. The king ponders her request, searching his memory for such a legendary drink. Heidi laughs, confidently assuming that no such superior drink could possibly exist. The king's expression turns serious as he reveals that such a drink does exist. The dwarves are utterly stunned to hear that a better drink might exist. Their shock quickly turns to intrigued disbelief and bubbling excitement. The king asks if she knows of the Third Gift Research Institute in the capital. He explains a recent report from its director mentions something extraordinary. The king spoke of a new beer, a heavenly nectar from Nadai Tsujisoba. He called it Nadai Tsujisoba, a name the Grand Duchess did not recognize. She laughed, certain their own ale was superior to any human brew. But the king's face was a mask of stone, his expression utterly serious. He stared at her, his gaze unwavering and filled with profound conviction. Her laughter faded as she realized, with a jolt, that he was not joking. "Prepare the horses," she roared, demanding they ride for Alvale at once. A new arrival was about to disturb the peace of the old capital, Alvale. At the city gates, a guard waved a humble wooden cart through. The driver offered his thanks, the transaction simple and uneventful. Suddenly, the guards looked up, alerted by a strange, distant sound. One asked what was wrong as the other noted a growing noise. Their expressions twisted into shock as the rumbling sound grew louder. The Dwarven cavalry thundered into the city, a storm of hooves and fury. "Tell Hyson," she bellowed, "that Heidi Weda Degato has come for a drink." Inside the grand castle, Marquis Alvale awaited his unexpected guest. He grumbled to Adamant that one day was not enough to prepare a reception. Heidi arrived laughing, telling Hyson to be a more considerate host. Alvale noted that no dwarf could ever resist the allure of delicious sake. She mocked the pampered nobles of the court who did nothing for their people. Alvale shot back, wondering how her foul mouth fared among the aristocracy. She was glad the fawning nobles weren't present, a fact Alvale found audacious. Leaning in, she jabbed that he was far too delicate for his own good. She knew his tireless nature, a fact that only seemed to annoy him more. "More importantly, Hyson," she began, "you're harboring a special stranger." She knew his name was Yukido, a man from Earth serving delicious drinks. Alvale confirmed Yukido was protected, but served customers without prejudice. "So Hyson," she asked, "what is it you wanted to discuss?" Alvale declared that he would allow her to drink the beer at Nadai Tsujisoba. A letter from his brother had already informed him of her singular desire. Overjoyed, she asked if her loyal retainers could join in the tasting. She teased him, saying that such formal, noble words did not suit him at all. As Alvale presented the shop, the dwarves stared in utter disbelief. The Grand Duchess was completely stunned by the otherworldly sight. She marveled that the walls were made of flawless, practical glass. The intricate food models in the window were crafted with impossible skill. Inside, the gleaming interior and perfect furniture were beyond anything she knew. Alvale turned to her with a smirk, asking for her impression. Left speechless, she had to admit that this was truly something special. Alvale told her of glass towers that reached the sky in Yukido's world. She grabbed him, shouting in disbelief about such impossible structures. "You fool," she thought, wondering just how advanced this earth truly was. Alvale urged them on, explaining he had rented the shop for only an hour. Her excitement returned in a rush. "That's right, beer!" she cried. With a soft hiss, the strange entrance began to open before them. The dwarves stepped inside, their faces a perfect picture of astonishment. Every dwarf, from the Duchess to her men, was completely captivated. She looked around wildly, searching for the magical device that opened the door. A retainer pointed to the tiny, unassuming sensor mounted above the frame. Inside, Lutia and Chap greeted the esteemed guest with a warm welcome. Alvale apologized to the staff for their sudden and boisterous arrival. She scanned the room, seeking the black-haired stranger the king described. Lutia explained that the manager was in the kitchen preparing for their party. As she led them to a table, she noted soba shops attract heavy drinkers. Heidi sat down, her expression souring at the hard wooden seat. But a moment later, her face flushed with surprised delight. She held up a soft cushion, overjoyed that her bottom would not ache. Alvale ordered 4 beers, but Heidi insisted that dwarves only drink water. Lutia smiled brightly, acknowledging the Grand Duchess's specific request. She relayed the order to the kitchen, calling for 4 beers for the party. Alvale glanced toward the kitchen, confirming that was indeed the stranger. Heidi asked why he wasn't drinking, but Alvale simply said he would pass. He had work, but she scoffed, saying dwarves drink whenever they please. Lutia returned with their drinks just as Alvale explained their customs. As Lutia presented the beer, Heidi's eyes went wide with astonishment. She placed a glass of water beside the magnificent mug of beer. What is this, jockey?" she stammered, mesmerized by the glass vessel. She noted that, like the door, the glass was flawless and perfectly uniform. This had to be the work of a master craftsman using advanced molds. She then examined the beer, which looked like ale but was entirely different. The golden liquid was perfectly clear, with no trace of sediment. The smooth foam and incredible transparency were unlike anything she had seen. She gripped the handle, her heart pounding with absolute certainty of its taste. The first sip sent a shock through her. "Whoa, it's so cold!" The entire drink was chilled like ice, an unbelievable luxury. A wide, giddy grin of pure pleasure spread across her face. Without a moment's hesitation, she tilted the heavy mug back. She began to chug the otherworldly beer with unrestrained gusto. Her retainers followed her lead, all drinking with equal enthusiasm. With a thunderous slam, she brought the empty mug down hard. "Pah!" she roared. "That was absolutely delicious." She pointed an accusing finger at Alvale, demanding to know what this was. If this was sake, then what had they been drinking their whole lives? Her men erupted in praise, declaring it far superior to their own ale. Alvale smirked, asking if she admitted defeat. Blushing, she agreed. She mused that since both were malt liquors, her own ale could be improved. There absolutely had to be a way to make their ale even more delicious. "That's it," she realized with a snap of her fingers. "We'll chill it." She eagerly called out to Lutia, ordering another round for everyone. She then asked for a food pairing, certain it would also be delicious. Lutia thought for a moment before recommending the spicy curry rice. Heidi agreed that a spicy curry would perfectly complement the refreshing beer. Alvale, however, decided to order the tempura soba for himself. The staff relayed the large order to the kitchen, which Yuko confirmed. Heidi called out to Alvale, who turned to see what she wanted. She told him to inform the king that she was now happy to oblige his request. He asked why she wouldn't tell him herself, but she wasn't in the mood. She now had more important things she wanted to accomplish right away. Her new quest was to improve their ale using what she had learned today. It might take a lifetime, but she could not contain her burning passion. Grand Duchess Heidi smiles, certain her dwarves will burn with passion after this tale. Marquis Alvale watches her, remarking on her newfound and intense motivation. Heidi boasts of her domain's future, while Alvale teases her about finding a goal. The dwarves roar with delight, proclaiming the curry and beer are a perfect pairing. A caption reveals that each dwarf consumed 5 large mugs of beer in just 1 hour. The scene shifts to the rugged Dagado Mountains, where a dragon is being slain. A lone swordsman in white robes calmly confronts the massive roaring beast. Deep within the dungeon, a massive cracked dragon egg lies among the rubble. The swordsman, Duke Sasaki, coolly remarks that a lizard this large is quite a spectacle. The colossal dragon's foot stomps down with earth-shaking force. A young adventurer screams for the old man to run, saying the beast is too powerful. Duke Sasaki calmly announces he is beginning as he raises his sword. With a single fluid motion, Sasaki's blade cleanly severs the dragon's massive arm. The severed limb crashes heavily to the ground, ending the beast's attack. Sasaki looks on, disappointed that his opponent was far too weak to be a challenge. The adventurer realizes he is witnessing the legendary great swordsman, Duke Sasaki. Sasaki's hardened expression is like that of Ashura, a demon of battle. A flashback shows a younger Sasaki who hails from the small Fram principality. He stands before a tomb located in the vassal state of Ardhead. This is the grave of his ancestor, the stranger Kojiro Sasaki, who defeated Surtur. Kojiro was a legendary swordsman who forged his own path without a gift. As a child, Sasaki playfully declared himself Kojiro, ready to challenge the giant Surtur. He and a friend are shown locked in a spirited wooden sword duel. Having defeated his friend, young Sasaki smirks victoriously over his fallen foe. He proudly believed his ancestor was stronger than the famous rival Musashi. His friends cheer for him, exclaiming how cool his ancestor Kojiro is. However, the young Sasaki's own divine gift was actually for blacksmithing. His older brother, the heir, possessed the powerful gift of the great hero. His parents gently told him not to worry and to become a blacksmith instead. But Sasaki argued that since Kojiro became the strongest without a gift, he could too. And so, at the young age of 15, he left home with only a single sword. He wandered the land, fighting knights and exploring dungeons to hone his skills. Though often beaten, he would grit his teeth and vow to win the next time. He clenched his fist, driven by a relentless desire to become even stronger. For 30 years he fought, becoming a legend until a black dragon defeated him. Now he wanders the dark, unfamiliar streets of a city at night. He sits alone, wondering where he can find a truly worthy opponent. He overhears locals gossiping about a genuinely powerful person in the city. They speak of Lutia, a dungeon explorer in Alvale with the Sword King gift. Seeking a challenge, he immediately goes to the Alvale Dungeon Explorers Guild. The receptionist cheerfully informs him that Lucha has already retired. He demands to know where she is now, and the receptionist guesses she's working. He is stunned that the Sword King would be working in a mere diner. The shock is so great that his stomach lets out a loud, embarrassing growl. Defeated and weary, he decides to get some sleep as it is already daytime. He observes the old royal castle, noting it has been restored since he last saw it. He once felt inspired by the sight, but now he feels nothing at all. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he spots something impossibly out of place. He stares at the Nadaitsuji Soba, a modern shop built into the old castle wall. He is utterly confused, muttering to himself, "What is this?" He deduces it is a restaurant, questioning how it pierces the thick castle wall. Despite its strange exterior, he can see that it is bustling with activity. He looks up at the sign, its bold characters spelling out Nadai Tsujisoba. He recognizes the script. It is similar to that in his ancestor Kojiro's journal. A small chibi version of young Sasaki is shown, unable to read the text. He wonders if the owner is also a stranger from Hinamoto and decides to go inside. The door slides open automatically, a shockingly extravagant device for an entryway. Inside, he sees two young men chatting happily with each other. He observes the curious sight of commoners and nobles eating together peacefully. He notices an elf at the counter, eating with a surprisingly ferocious appetite. A cheerful waitress, Lutia, approaches him with a tray and a bright welcome. She explains that the shop is currently very crowded and apologizes for the wait. She gestures for him to take a seat at the counter, which he does. He sits next to the elf, Taceria, who is serenely enjoying her meal. He picks up the sleek, laminated card, recognizing it as the menu. As he looks at the contents, his eyes widen in complete bewilderment. He struggles to decipher the pictures of noodles, rice, and a drink called beer. Lutia returns, placing a glass of water before him with a bright smile. She explains that the water is a free service, with refills available on request. He stares in disbelief at the perfectly formed ice cubes clinking in his glass. He thinks that making ice with magic and giving it away for free is unbelievable. He cautiously raises the glass to his lips and takes a small sip. He is amazed by the exquisite taste, as pure and refreshing as snowmelt. With water this good, he concludes that the food must be worth waiting for. He studies the menu again, thinking cold soba would be perfect for the summer heat. He sees there are 4 different kinds, however, and is unsure which to choose. The elf Taceria turns to him, kindly asking if he is having trouble deciding. With a warm smile, she correctly guesses that it's his first time at Nadai Tsujisoba. He looks at her, confused, repeating the unfamiliar name of the restaurant. She giggles, saying it's obvious from his expression that he is a newcomer. She correctly deduces that he was struggling with what to order from the menu. He looks at her intently, asking how she could possibly know all of this. She wags a finger playfully, explaining that one must start with the restaurant's basics. He agrees that understanding the fundamentals is indeed important and makes his choice. He raises his hand to Lutia, politely saying he is ready to place his order. He points to the menu, ordering the mori soba, and Lutia confirms his choice. Lutia calls out the order for 1 mori soba, which Chap in the kitchen acknowledges. While waiting, Sasaki wonders what this mysterious mori soba will be like. The dish arrives, a pristine plate of noodles and a small bowl of dipping sauce. He strokes his chin, pondering how to properly eat the separated noodles and soup. Taceria leans over, explaining that he should dip a mouthful of noodles into the soup. He is impressed she is teaching him, and she proudly calls herself a master of the shop. She explains the chopped naganegi onions are good for adding a spicy kick. She then describes the potent green wasabi paste, a spice that can bring tears. She advises him to add it sparingly, and he thanks her for the kind instruction. All the talk makes him hungry for morisoba, so Taceria orders a large portion. He asks if she's still eating, and she says she must finish before her next dish arrives. Sasaki picks up a pair of disposable chopsticks from the container on the counter. With a sharp crack, he snaps the wooden utensils apart with focused precision. He clumsily tries to pick up the noodles, his face strained with intense concentration. Duke Sasaki lifts the morisoba noodles, his gaze sharp and analytical. He dips the cold noodles into the dark, fragrant dipping sauce. With a loud slurp, he takes his first momentous bite of the soba. His eye widens in utter shock at the incredible unknown flavor. The flavor transports him to a fishing village, recognizing the sea's taste. He closes his eyes, savoring the unique aroma and declaring it delicious. He lifts another bundle of the perfectly arranged soba noodles to eat. The uniform noodles create a wonderful texture and go down smoothly. As a fellow wielder of the blade, he deeply respects the chef's skill. It would be disrespectful not to finish such a magnificent dish completely. Next, he decides to try adding the chopped green onions to the sauce. He dips the noodles again, this time coated with the fresh onions. He takes another bite, slurping loudly to savor the new combination. He exclaims that the crisp texture and spice are an excellent addition. His expression hardens as he prepares for the final, mysterious condiment. He readies himself to try the wasabi, the last remaining flavor. He recalls Taceria's warning that the spice would make him cry. With a decisive move, he drops a piece of wasabi into the sauce. The soup is now saturated. He wonders if he was too hasty. No, he decides, I must be bold, and takes a large bite. An intense jolt of spice shoots through him, a shocking sensation. He reels back in his seat, completely overwhelmed by the wasabi's power. My nose, he thinks, clutching his face as the vaporous heat hits. The overwhelming pungency brings tears to his eyes as he struggles. He quickly reaches for the glass of ice-cold water for relief. Taking a deep breath, he admits he was completely unprepared for that. This time, he dips the noodles into the sauce with much more caution. He takes a gentle bite, his expression calm and focused now. The refreshing aroma and subtle spice transport him to a serene peak. He savors the perfect balance of flavors with his eyes closed. The otherworldly taste of the soba is simply declared delicious. So this, he realizes, is the fundamental taste of this unique shop. He reflects that it has been quite a long time since he's eaten so well. He had never paid any mind to food during his harsh life. For 30 years, his path was only about seeking strength. His entire existence had been dedicated to perfecting his swordsmanship. He remembered a time when simply swinging a sword was fun. He considers opening a dojo or living peacefully by the sea. He lets out a soft sound, contemplating this newfound path. A god muses if Duke will change, noting his miserable past. He thanks the staff and departs, leaving Lutia to smile warmly. Later that night, the crescent moon hangs in the starry sky. Yuko enjoys a beer, declaring it the perfect end to a long day. He sighs happily, exclaiming how delicious and refreshing the beer is. Lutia remarks on how busy they were, suggesting adding sake to the menu. Suddenly, a notification appears before a surprised Yuko. Level up. The next menus are revealed, meat soba and delicious croquette soba. He cheers, knowing the croquette soba will be a perfect match for beer. He sees that meat soba, both hot and cold, is now available. This is great, he thinks to himself with a confident grin. The text notes that it is now a sweltering summer in Arles. The new stamina-boosting meat soba dishes are shown in detail. He fondly recalls how the cold meat soba was his favorite meal. The menu has grown significantly since the shop first opened. He's happy with his staff but knows they're getting too busy. He sighs, realizing that they are desperately short on staff. He wonders if he can find 1 or 2 more workers. A loud growl echoes from a famished girl's empty stomach. Tears stream down her face as she cries out that she's starving. The next morning, the sun rises over the city of Alvale. He decides to talk to his staff during their morning meal. He resolves to get them fired up for another busy day. Lutia and Chap arrive, greeting him with cheerful good mornings. He presents their special staff meal, croquette soba and devil's onigiri. They are thrilled, having never tried either of these new dishes. He explains his special recipe for the delicious devil's onigiri. Together, they happily put their hands together and begin to eat. Chap closes his eyes as he takes his first bite of the onigiri. Yuko proudly thinks to himself how well it turned out. Lutia and Chap both exclaim how incredibly delicious the onigiri is. Chap declares it's the best, just as a hand appears on the glass. The girl's stomach lets out another loud, desperate rumble. She presses her face to the door, whispering that she is hungry. With a soft click, the lock on the automatic door opens. The door slides open, allowing the mysterious girl to enter. Lutia turns to her coworkers, saying she needs to consult them. Her stomach lets out another powerful growl, demanding food. The 3 staff members turn, surprised by the sudden arrival. She points a trembling finger, saying the triangular food looks delicious. Chap wonders aloud if he forgot to lock the door. The girl is identified as a member of the demon race. The demon race has many variations, including goblins and slimes. The strongest demons, the dragonoids, rule the Sankoku kingdom. The king explains the tradition for royal children at age 100. This is how the first demon king learned and built their nation. Princess Shaun is wished a happy 100th birthday by her father. He informs her that it is now her turn to undertake the training. She protests, arguing that as the youngest, the training is pointless for her. Her father shows his sharp teeth, his mind already made up. With a single word, go, зрение, он отсылает свою дочь. The massive doors slam shut, sealing her fate and his warning. She flies away in despair, unable to believe she was cast out. Her gift is revealed to be unlocked, symbolized by a key. It allows her to open any lock, a skill more suited for a thief. She panics, declaring that she could never be a criminal. She also refuses to become a dungeon explorer and fight monsters. The demon race doesn't enjoy killing, despite their appearance. But she still has to find a way to make a living. She remembers that she might have a connection in another country. She recalls her older brother Duolon, who is also on his journey. A letter from her brother 4 years ago was her only guide. He was training in the human land, the Cathedral Kingdom, due north. If I can meet Duolon, she thought, I should be okay. But without money, she was forced to sleep in the trees for now. A lone bird soared through the sky, a mirror of her own flight. The pampered princess found no rest on the hard, aching branches. A descending spider sent her into a fit of terrified screams. A deep, rumbling growl echoed from her empty stomach. A rushing river offered the promise of a meal. She caught a large fish but had no idea how to prepare it. She tried to cook it with a pathetic puff of dragon breath. The result was a disaster. The fish was still completely raw. She could not continue this life. She had to find her brother. 2 weeks later, she finally reached the city of Alvale. She found the tavern her brother had mentioned in his letter. The landlady asked if she was a demon, like the man she sought. But she was told Duolon had left for another country a year ago. Shaun desperately asked where he went, but the woman didn't know. Her long-term plan to rely on her brother had utterly collapsed. The landlady asked if the young demon had a place to stay. Shaun had to admit that she was completely broke. She wandered the empty streets, her stomach aching with hunger. She hadn't eaten a single thing since the morning. How could she possibly endure this hardship for 100 years? Tears welled as she longed for her grand palace and her own room. She missed her clean bed and her beautiful silken clothes. She dreamt of the lavish feasts, so different from burnt raw fish. In the palace, she had everything without having to do a thing. But as she wept, a profound realization began to dawn on her. Her entire life of luxury was paid for by the taxes of her people. The servants only cared for her because she was a royal. She finally understood it was not a life to be taken for granted. Without her title, she would have received none of those things. A quiet moment of clarity washed over the disgraced princess. She wept, knowing this journey was to teach her gratitude and duty. Her epiphany was interrupted by another sharp pang of hunger. Clenching her fist, she resolved to find a live-in job somewhere. She would work hard and be grateful for even the simplest meal. Her determined shout to do her best echoed over the city rooftops. The next morning, she stood exhausted but resolute in the street. Her eyes were drawn to a strange building set into the castle wall. What is this? She wondered, staring at the unfamiliar structure. She marveled at the transparent walls, a perfect glass she'd never seen. Through the clear window, she saw several people sitting inside. Her gaze was fixed on the scene, her expression filled with wonder. She saw a strange triangular food, wondering if it was even edible. What could that be? She whispered, her curiosity piqued. She watched the staff, Yuko, Lutia, and Chap, eating together. She stood outside, a lonely figure watching the warm scene within. The three of them were smiling and laughing, enjoying their meal. How nice, huh? She thought wistfully. It looks so delicious. The sight reminded her of her own family sharing happy meals. A single powerful thought formed in the darkness. Me too. Her eyes sharpened, a deep and sudden longing taking hold. With a soft click, she used her unlocked gift on the door. So I want to go in there, she decided, her mind made up. The automatic doors slid open with a soft, welcoming hiss. She took a single, determined step across the threshold. She timidly approached the staff, asking if she could speak with them. She looked up at them, her voice barely a hopeful whisper. The triangular food they were eating, she said, looked very tasty. The three employees were completely stunned by her sudden request. She pointed at the onigiri, repeating how delicious it appeared. Chap and Lutia exchanged confused glances, unsure what to do. Yuko realized what she was pointing at, picking one up. He asked if she meant the onigiri, a name she'd never heard. He explained what it was called and kindly offered her one. She was shocked by his generosity, asking if it was really okay. Yuko simply waited, a gentle smile on his face. She tearfully admitted that she had no money to pay him back. She knew this was a restaurant. She couldn't just eat for free. He smiled warmly, telling her not to worry about money for this. He gently gestured with the plate, encouraging her to eat. At that moment, her stomach let out a loud, desperate growl. With a tearful, grateful nod, she finally accepted his offer. She held the onigiri in both hands as if it were a jewel. She took a huge, eager bite, her eyes closing in ecstasy. A starburst of pure flavor exploded in her mind's eye. "Wow!" she exclaimed, a sound of pure, overwhelming bliss. She savored the complex taste of sweet grain and savory seasoning. The crispy texture and the rich flavor of oil were a revelation. Beneath it all was the unmistakable, delicious scent of the sea. Delicious, she thought, her hand reaching for the heavens. She felt as though she were floating on a lotus of perfect flavor. Tears of pure joy streamed down her face as she whispered the word. Chap smiled, noting how hungry she was, and offered her his own. Lutia said she would bring water so the princess wouldn't choke. Yuko offered to make her croquette soba, saying she could eat more. She held the second onigiri, her expression full of disbelief. She had no idea what croquette soba could possibly be. But in a warm place like this, she knew it had to be delicious. Overcome with hunger and emotion, she began to choke on the rice. Her new friends flew into a comical panic, calling for water. Lutia rushed to her side, helping her drink and telling her to slow down. Yuko hurried over to make sure she was okay. She gave a small, grateful smile, clutching the glass of water. Surrounded by them, she felt a warmth she hadn't known in ages. The sun glinted brightly off the Nadai Tsujisoba sign outside. Yuko put his hands together, having finished his own meal. After her food, she shyly asked what the word Gochi Susuma meant. With hands pressed together, Yuko explains the meaning of a mealtime prayer. Shaun repeats the phrase, surrounded by the warm smiles of her new friends. She then apologizes to Yuko for having entered his shop uninvited. She formally introduces herself as Shaun, the 8th princess of Sankoku. The staff is stunned, wondering why royalty is so tattered and hungry. She explains it's a royal tradition, a difficult trial she must endure. They listen, shocked by the idea of a 100-year training journey abroad. The three of them process this incredible information in a moment of silence. Yuko confirms her age. She explains dragonoids live for 1,000 years. He is taken aback, realizing what her age means in human terms. He sees a small child cast out into the world all alone. He fumes that her family should have at least provided some travel funds. Chap considers her situation, looking for a practical solution. He asks if she could survive by becoming a dungeon explorer. The mere suggestion sends Shaun into a state of absolute terror. She insists she hates fighting monsters, or even watching others do it. Lutia recalls that demons were created to be companions to the gods. Chap realizes he's never actually seen a demon in a dungeon. He then asks if she could work as a mercenary. The idea is even worse. She declares she hates killing people. Yuko nods, completely understanding her gentle, pacifist nature. He reflects that hating to fight is a perfectly natural feeling. He waves off Chap's questions, saying it's just his own rambling. He gently asks Shaun what she has decided to do now. She admits she doesn't know, having never worked in her life. Tears well in her eyes as she faces the daunting 100-year journey. Her strength means little without the basic skills to survive. Lutia looks to Yuko, pleading with him to help the lost princess. Yuko addresses the girl kindly, calling her Shaorin-chan. He offers a suggestion. What if she were to work at their shop? Shaun is completely flabbergasted by the unexpected offer of a job. Chap and Lutia are thrilled, praising their manager's brilliant idea. Yuko explains it is a perfect match, solving both of their problems. He knows he can't simply go to the Grand Duke about a foreign princess. He formally offers her a position as a live-in employee. He promises a decent salary and, most importantly, 3 meals a day. The offer hangs in the air, a single beacon of hope for her. She asks with a trembling voice if she is truly allowed to stay. The staff smiles down at her, offering her a place among them. She asks if he will feed her onigiri again. He promises he will. He tells her that if it's what she wants, he will make it. The simple kindness of making her what she wants to eat is overwhelming. He declares that this is the true spirit of Nadai Tsujisoba. Overcome with gratitude, she agrees to work, tears of joy streaming down. She bows deeply to the floor, begging them to let her work there. Yuko smiles warmly, officially welcoming her to the Nadai Tsujisoba team. He introduces himself as Yuko Hatsushiro, the shop's manager. Lutia Selen gives a cheerful welcome to her new co-worker. Chap adds that he's new too, so they can learn together. Shaun is flustered but feels like she has finally found a family. She thinks about their kindness and vows to work hard for them. 5 days later, Shaun is adjusting to her new life at the shop. While cleaning, she accidentally breaks a dish and apologizes profusely. She feels clumsy and useless, her eyes filling with tears of frustration. Chap kindly reassures her that everyone breaks dishes sometimes. Yuko adds that it's simply proof that she is working hard. He thanks her for washing the dishes, making her blush with pride. She thinks that working is difficult, but she is truly happy here. Yuko reminds her his gift ensures no bad people can enter the shop. She knows work isn't always fun, but something smells wonderful. She sniffs the air, a delicious aroma wafting from the kitchen. The manager's staff meals have become the highlight of her long days. She fondly remembers the devil's onigiri that started her new life. Thanks to Yukito's cooking, she has fallen completely in love with rice. For today's staff meal, she has put in a special request. Yukito calls out that her yaki onigiri is ready for her break. She stands at comical attention, rigid with pure, unadulterated excitement. She eagerly confirms that she has been looking forward to this all day. He warns her to be careful as it's fresh and hot off the grill. A plate of 2 perfectly grilled, glistening rice balls is presented. She presses her hands together, ready to enjoy her special meal. She takes a massive, enthusiastic bite of the crispy, savory onigiri. The satisfying crunch echoes as she bites through the toasted exterior. Her eyes widen in surprise and delight at the wonderful new texture. She realizes that grilling the rice makes it harder and so different. A look of pure bliss spreads across her face as she chews happily. The rice's sweetness is joined by the fragrant aroma of toasted soy sauce. She savors the incredibly delicious flavor, a perfect, comforting meal. She muses that an onigiri is still an onigiri. Even when it's brushed with soy sauce and grilled to perfection, she's amazed that such a bold change doesn't alter its true nature. A single perfect grilled onigiri sits alone on its plate. She licks her sticky fingers, remarking on how delicious it was. Only one precious onigiri remains on her plate. As she reaches for it, Lutia rushes over with a tray of dishes. With a bright smile, she tells Shaun to wait just a moment. She approaches with a bowl and ladle, a brilliant idea in mind. She gestures towards the last grilled onigiri on the plate. She suggests a special way to finish the meal: Dashi chazuke. The name is completely new and baffling to the young princess. Yukito explains that dashi is the savory soup base for their soba. Lutia instructs her to place the last onigiri into the empty bowl. Shaun carefully places the rice ball into the center of the bowl. Lutia explains that she will now pour the hot broth over it. She gently ladles the steaming, fragrant dashi over the onigiri. As a final perfect touch, she adds a sprinkle of green onions. Shaun looks on, her face a mask of pure wonder and anticipation. The finished dashi chazuke is simple, elegant, and incredibly inviting. Shaun admires the golden broth and the vibrant specks of green onion. Lutia hands her a pair of chopsticks for the final comforting course. Lutia kindly shows Shaun how to enjoy the rest of her meal. She assures the princess it will be delicious, earning a grateful thank you. Shaun reflects on Lutia's kindness, feeling she is like an older sister. She realizes everyone at the shop is kind. She loves this new family. A comforting warmth fills her chest, a feeling she has never known before. She recalls the cold palace, realizing she is now truly happy working here. With newfound resolve, she turns her attention back to the special meal. The steaming bowl of dashi chazuke promised to warm her body and soul. She lifts the bowl to her lips, inhaling the fragrant, warm steam. The savory broth touches her lips, a gentle and comforting sensation. The flavor feels strangely nostalgic, transporting her to a peaceful, warm coastline. Lutia gently reminds her to break apart the onigiri while she eats. Her chopsticks press into the rice ball, crumbling it into the savory broth. She eagerly brings a spoonful of the warm, delicious mixture to her mouth. Her eyes widen in utter shock as an incredible new flavor explodes. The profound taste leaves her completely speechless and overwhelmed with pure delight. A wave of bliss washes over her as she declares it absolutely delicious. In an instant, every last drop of the wonderful meal is completely gone. She clutches the empty bowl, overcome with profound gratitude and emotion. Tears of joy stream down her face as she smiles with pure contentment. With a deep sigh of satisfaction, she places the perfectly empty bowl down. A blissful, happy smile spreads across her face as she feels completely full. She praises the meal, declaring it far more delicious than the royal palace's food. She marvels that Yukito can create such dishes from simple, common ingredients. She wishes she could stay here for her entire 100-year training period. But she remembers humans have short lives, and their parting will come too soon. The thought of losing her new family brings a fresh wave of tears. And for that very reason, she resolves to help them with all her might. Far to the northwest, the remote and sacred Ishtaka Mountains rise sharply. Elderly pilgrims gaze upon the holy mountain, grateful to have finally arrived. One woman weeps with joy, glad she could walk to the holy site. A local man informs them that the mountain range is a restricted area. He explains that a guardian deity still resides upon the sacred mountain. This sacred guardian is an elf who lives and works upon the land. Teao of Ishtaka reflects on the mountain's importance to his elven kin. The mountain is home to a marsh brimming with powerful magical energy. Here, elves have built a small settlement, surviving by exploring local dungeons. Another important part of their life on the mountain exists as well. He harvests potatoes, a local specialty that thrives in the barren soil. He carries his harvest back through the simple, rustic elven tree settlement. Suddenly, his attention is caught by something descending from the sky above. A large bird swoops down, landing gracefully upon his outstretched, bandaged arm. A magical sigil glows on its head, the mark of the tame gift. This magical gift grants its user the ability to command and use animals. This particular creature is a messenger bird, carrying an important letter. Teao carefully unties the scroll, wondering who could have sent the message. As he begins to read the letter, his expression becomes serious and concerned. The letter is from his aunt, asking if he and everyone are well. She writes with an important matter to discuss concerning a girl named Taceria. Taceria is his cousin from Ibaraki Forest and also his betrothed. He is shocked to read that she has not sent a letter home for 10 years. His aunt, worried, asks him to go and see how she is doing. He considers the long journey, but knows he has a duty to go. He knows it won't take long thanks to his unique flight magic gift. This rare gift allows him to travel unaffected by roads or terrain. Before leaving on his journey, he goes to speak with his father. His father, though ill, insists he go, promising to watch the fields. Teao protests, saying his father has been bedridden with a bad back. His mother died 20 years ago, leaving only him and his father. "Don't worry, Teao," his father says, having anticipated this very situation. He reveals an ornate bottle, a treasure he has kept hidden away. Teao stares in confusion, asking his father what the strange bottle is. With a determined look, his father reveals its name, a panacea. Teao shouts in disbelief, unable to believe he is seeing a panacea. It is a legendary potion, impossible to craft, that can heal any illness. His father explains that Teo's grandfather discovered it while exploring a dungeon. Teao had heard rumors of it, but never believed his father possessed it. He had saved it for his wife, Ama, but it was no use. A panacea is a powerful medicine, but it cannot revive the dead. He declares he will use it now so Teao won't have to worry. Teao is moved to tears by his father's selfless act of love. His father tells him to go. Taceria is his betrothed after all. The old elf uncorks the precious vial, preparing to drink the potion. He quickly drinks the contents of the legendary life-changing panacea. He immediately spits it out, screaming that the taste is absolutely disgusting. With a grateful smile, Teao thanks his father and prepares to depart. Several days later, Teao arrives at the magnificent royal capital. He checks the letter, confirming Taceria works at the Third Research Institute. He decides to ask for directions at the royal castle, a state facility. But at the main gate, the royal guards roughly turn him away. He pleads his case, but the guards refuse to let an elf pass. Just then, the sound of an approaching horse-drawn carriage interrupts them. Desperate, Teao shouts out, asking if an elf named Taceria is there. A nobleman steps from the carriage, his attention caught by Taceria's name. It is Marquis Canis, who asks if Teao is related to Taceria. Teao is flustered, asking the man who he is and how he knows her. The Marquis explains that he is a noble, and Taceria once saved his life. Teao confirms he has come to see Taceria at the Research Institute. The Marquis suddenly looks nervous, a bead of sweat on his brow. He explains that it is a shame Teao has come all this way. Taceria isn't here. She is in Alvale on an investigative mission. Feeling he's been given the runaround, Teao flies off in frustration. A few days later, his journey finally brings him to the old capital. He is impressed by the bright, beautiful streets of the human city. He thinks that since elves are rare, he should find her easily. He nervously approaches a rough-looking adventurer to ask for information. He asks the man if he knows of any female elves in the city. The man knows her, the big-eating female elf who is always at Tsujiba. Teao is stunned by the description, as elves are known to be dainty eaters. He wonders if it is really Taceria, but the man seems certain. The elf Teao asks about a place called Soba, guessing it's a diner. A local adventurer asks if Teao is new. The elf shyly confirms he is. The man gives a knowing smirk, saying it's no wonder he hasn't heard. He enthusiastically explains Soba is the most popular, bustling diner in the city. He tells Teao to look for it built into the old castle wall. Since elves are rare, he suggests the regulars there might know Teo's friend. Teao is taken aback by this surprisingly useful and specific piece of information. With a polite bow of thanks, Teao watches the friendly adventurer wave goodbye. With a new lead and a determined look, Teao decides to investigate the diner. He arrives to find a massive, bustling line of diverse people outside the shop. A slight blush on his cheeks, he confirms this must be the famous Soba. He notes how conspicuous the shop is, just as the man had excitedly described. Even to his country eyes, this one shop felt exceptionally strange for the city. His gaze suddenly sharpens as he spots a familiar-looking figure through the window. He sees an elf at the counter, wondering if it's the one he seeks. Steeling his resolve, he prepares to enter the shop and confirm his suspicions. Resigned to the wait, he dutifully joins the end of the long, winding queue. 30 minutes later, his patience pays off as he reaches the front line. The door slides open as a voice from inside calls for the next customer. As he steps inside, the door glides shut behind him with silent, effortless motion. The advanced technology of the automatic door leaves the mountain elf utterly stunned. Blushing, he tells himself to calm down. It must just be a city magical tool. The demon princess Shaun, now a waitress, offers him a warm, professional welcome. He gives the proud young waitress an encouraging pat on the head for her greeting. Shaun explains that because the shop is so full, he will have to share. She points to the only open seat, right beside the other elf at the counter. Teao makes his way to the counter, his gaze fixed on the familiar figure. He thanks the young waitress with a kind smile, and she blushes in response. He sees his friend Taceria receive her food, her face lighting up with delight. He then watches stunned as she slurps her noodles with unelven gusto. Her complete lack of traditional elven decorum leaves him utterly speechless and confused. Taceria finally notices his stare and asks if she can help him find a seat. She gestures to the empty stool next to her, politely inviting him to join. As their eyes finally meet, a sparkling moment of joyful recognition dawns between them. In a moment of happy surprise, the two friends joyfully call out to each other.